Every quiet night carries a truth most people never say out loud. Behind the smiles, behind the duties, behind the strong answers you give the world, there is a part of you that still remembers what hurt. The words you never answered, the pain you swallowed, the disappointment you turned into silence, the memories you buried so deeply that even you started pretending they were gone. But when the world becomes still, the mind begins to speak. It brings back the old scenes, the faces, the regrets, the moments that changed how you saw yourself. And sometimes the pain is not loud, it is quiet. It shows up as overthinking, as tiredness, as a heavy chest, as the feeling that something inside you has been carrying more than it was ever meant to carry. You may have told yourself to move on. You may have acted like it did not affect you. You may have become stronger, calmer, wiser, and more disciplined. But strength does not always mean healing. Sometimes strength only means you learned how to keep walking while something inside you was still bleeding in silence. The Stoics understood this hidden battle. They knew that the mind suffers most when it keeps fighting what it cannot change. They taught that peace begins when you stop arguing with the past, stop obeying every painful thought, and stop letting old wounds decide the shape of your future. Not by denying what happened, not by pretending it did not hurt, but by finally learning how to place the burden down. Tonight, this meditation is not here to erase your story. It is here to loosen the grip that story has on your nervous system, your sleep, your heart, and your identity. It is here to help you return to the part of yourself that existed before pain taught you to be guarded. So breathe slowly. Let the day fall away. Let the mind soften. Let the body stop defending itself against battles that are no longer here. For the next 4 hours, you do not have to explain your pain. You do not have to prove you were hurt. You do not have to carry the mental damage you never talk about. Tonight, you rest. Tonight, you release. Tonight, you begin again. And as the body begins to settle into the quiet of this night, there is one burden the mind must face first. It is not always the loudest pain. It is not always the memory that breaks you open. Sometimes the deepest exhaustion comes from the private arguments no one else can hear. The explanations you keep giving to people who are not even in the room. The defenses you keep building against accusations that may never come. The need to prove, again and again, that your heart was not wrong for feeling what it felt. There is a kind of tiredness sleep alone cannot fix. It does not come from working too many hours or carrying too many tasks. It comes from living inside your own mind as if you are always on trial. You wake up, you speak, you act, you choose. And even after the moment has passed, the mind pulls you back and asks, did I say too much? Did I sound weak? Did they misunderstand me? Should I have explained better? And before you know it, one small moment becomes a courtroom, and you become both the accused and the lawyer fighting for your own innocence. This is the hidden exhaustion of constantly explaining yourself in your own head. It is the silent habit of defending your intentions to people who may not even care enough to understand them. It is lying in bed at night and replaying conversations, not because the conversation matters anymore, but because some part of you is still trying to be seen clearly. You keep returning to the same sentence, the same look, the same silence, searching for a version of yourself that would have been accepted without question. But listen carefully, because this is where freedom begins. The mind does not explain itself endlessly because it is wise. It explains itself endlessly because it does not feel safe. Somewhere along the way, you may have learned that being misunderstood was dangerous. Maybe your words were twisted. Maybe your feelings were dismissed. Maybe you were made to feel guilty for having needs, boundaries, opinions, or pain. So now, even when no one is attacking you, the mind prepares a defense. It gathers evidence. It searches for proof. It tries to protect you from the old wound of not being believed. The Stoics would ask a quiet but powerful question. Is this within your control? You can control your honesty. You can control your actions. You can control the spirit behind your words. But you cannot control whether another person understands you with fairness. You cannot enter their mind and force them to see your heart correctly. You cannot keep rewriting yourself until every person approves of your meaning. And when you try, you do not become more peaceful, you become more divided. There is a great sadness in needing to explain your goodness to people committed to misunderstanding you. But there is also a deeper sadness in continuing that argument alone, long after they have left. That is where the real damage begins. Not only in what happened, but in how often your mind repeats it. Not only in the judgment someone gave you, but in how often you stand before that judgment again, in your thoughts, hoping this time you will win. Night makes this habit louder, because the world no longer distracts you. During the day you can hide behind activity, messages, work, noise, responsibilities, movement. But when the room goes dark and there is nothing left to perform, the mind opens the old files. It says, "Let us review this again." And you follow it, because part of you believes that if you think hard enough, you will finally find peace. But overthinking rarely gives peace. It usually gives more questions. It promises relief, but it often keeps the wound open. The Stoic path is not to silence the mind by force. It is to stop treating every thought like a command. A thought may say, "Explain yourself again," but you can answer, "No, I know what I meant." A memory may say, "Go back and fix how they saw you," but you can answer, "No, their version of me is not my home." A fear may say, "What if they think badly of you?" But you can answer, "Then they think badly. My duty is to live rightly, not to be perfectly understood." This is not arrogance. This is self-respect. There is a difference between being willing to clarify and being addicted to approval. Clarifying is calm. It speaks once, honestly, and then lets the truth breathe. But the need to explain yourself endlessly is restless. It keeps pushing, pleading, editing, and rehearsing. It believes peace will arrive when everyone finally sees you correctly. But life does not work that way. Some people will understand you late. Some will never understand you at all. Some will understand and still pretend they do not, because misunderstanding gives them power. So tonight, as you lie here, let this truth enter gently. You do not have to keep defending your soul in private. You do not have to revisit every moment where you felt unseen. You do not have to prepare perfect answers for people who were never listening with love. The mind may be used to fighting, but the body is asking for rest. The heart is asking to be released from the burden of proving what it already knows. Think of how much energy has been spent explaining pain that was already real. How many nights were lost trying to make invisible wounds sound reasonable? How many times you softened your own truth so it would not disturb someone else's comfort? How many times you blamed yourself, not because you were wrong, but because being misunderstood made you feel unsafe? This is the mental damage many people never talk about. It does not always look like sadness. Sometimes it looks like being overly careful. It looks like apologizing too quickly. It looks like needing to explain every boundary. It looks like feeling guilty even when you have done nothing wrong. But the Stoic mind learns to return to what is solid. What did I choose? What was my intention? Did I act with integrity? Did I speak with fairness? Did I honor what was within my control? If the answer is yes, then rest. Not everyone deserves another explanation. Not every misunderstanding requires your energy. Not every false opinion is a fire you must run to put out. There is peace in letting people keep the version of you they created while you return to the truth of who you are. There is peace in saying, "I have explained enough." There is peace in allowing silence to do what repeated words could not. Because sometimes silence is not weakness. Sometimes silence is the moment you stop begging to be understood by those who benefit from your confusion. Tonight, practice this release slowly. Let the breath become your answer. Let your relaxed shoulders say, "I am no longer on trial." Let your unclenched jaw say, "I do not need to win every invisible argument." Let your closed eyes say, "I am safe even if someone misunderstood me." Each exhale can become a quiet refusal to carry another unnecessary defense. You are allowed to know your own heart without presenting evidence. You are allowed to be kind and still be misread. You are allowed to make a decision without explaining it to every person who questions your peace. You are allowed to stop turning your mind into a courtroom for people who are not qualified to judge your soul. And as sleep draws closer, let this be the first burden you put down. The need to be perfectly understood, the need to correct every false story, the need to replay every conversation until it finally feels fair. You have carried those arguments long enough. You have stood before the invisible judge long enough. Now the night is asking you to step away from the trial and return to yourself. Rest in the quiet knowledge that your truth does not become less true because someone failed to see it. Your worth does not shrink because someone questioned it. Your peace does not need permission from the people who disturbed it. Let the mind stop explaining. Let the heart stop defending. Let the body remember what it feels like to be free from the constant need to prove. Tonight, you do not have to win the argument in your head. You only have to leave it. And after you leave the private courtroom of the mind, after you stop explaining yourself to voices that do not deserve your energy, another quieter wound may begin to rise. This one does not always come from what someone said. It often comes from what was never said. The comfort that never arrived, the care that was missing, the love that stood close enough to be seen, but too far away to be felt. Some pain screams when it happens, but some pain waits until night to speak. Silent emotional neglect can become louder at night than open pain, because the heart has no clear moment to point to. When someone hurts you openly, the mind can often name it. It can say, "That was cruel, that was unfair, that wounded me." But when the damage came through absence, coldness, distance, or emotional emptiness, the pain becomes harder to explain. Nothing dramatic may have happened. No one may have shouted. No one may have struck you with harsh words. Yet something inside you still learned to feel alone. That is what makes it so heavy. Emotional neglect is not always the presence of obvious harm. Sometimes it is the absence of needed warmth. It is needing comfort and receiving silence. It is sharing your pain and watching someone change the subject. It is being in the same house with people who feed your body but never ask about your heart. It is being praised for being strong while secretly wishing someone would notice how tired strength had made you. And because it is quiet, many people spend years doubting whether it mattered. They tell themselves, "Maybe I'm being too sensitive. Maybe other people had it worse. Maybe I should be grateful. Maybe this is not real pain." But the soul knows when it has been left alone too long. The body knows when it had to grow without softness. The mind knows when it stopped expecting comfort because comfort disappointed it too many times. At night, this hidden ache becomes louder because there are no roles left to hide behind. During the day, you can be productive. You can be helpful. You can answer messages, finish work, care for others, smile in public, and appear calm. But when the lights go out, your nervous system no longer has to perform. It begins to reveal what you have been carrying underneath your normal life. The loneliness, the unmet need, the old hunger to be held emotionally without needing to earn it. Open pain gives you a wound you can describe. Silent neglect leaves you with a question. Why did no one notice? Why did no one come closer? Why did I have to comfort myself when I barely knew how? Why did I become the person who understands everyone, while hardly anyone learned how to understand me? These questions can echo more deeply than a single painful event because they touch identity. They do not only make you ask what happened, they make you ask what you were worth to the people who should have cared. The Stoics would not ask you to deny this. They would not tell you to pretend absence did not hurt. True Stoicism is not emotional numbness. It is not forcing the heart to stay silent. It is the discipline of seeing clearly without becoming a prisoner of what you see. It is the courage to say, yes, something was missing, yes, I was affected, but I will not let that absence decide the size of my life. This is important because neglect often teaches a person to minimize themselves. You may learn not to ask for much. You may learn to hide disappointment quickly. You may become skilled at reading the moods of others while ignoring your own. You may become the easy one, the quiet one, the one who does not bother people with needs. And on the outside, this can look like maturity, but inside, it can feel like a slow disappearance. When love is emotionally absent, the mind adapts. It stops reaching. It stops expecting. It builds a small inner room where it can survive without asking anyone to enter. But survival is not the same as peace. You may become independent, yet still feel strangely empty when someone offers genuine care. You may crave closeness, yet feel uncomfortable when it finally comes. You may want to be seen, yet panic when attention becomes too intimate. This is how silent neglect leaves fingerprints on adult rest. It makes safety feel unfamiliar. And this is why sleep can become difficult. Sleep requires surrender. But surrender is hard for a person who learned that no one was coming. The body may lie down, but the mind stays alert. It checks for emotional danger. It replays old silences. It searches for what was missing, as if the night itself might finally answer. But the answer is not found by reopening the absence again and again. The answer begins when you stop blaming yourself for needing what every human heart needs. You were not weak for wanting tenderness. You were not needy for wanting someone to ask if you were okay and wait long enough to hear the real answer. You were not too much for wanting comfort without criticism. You were not dramatic for being affected by years of emotional distance. A plant does not become selfish because it needs sunlight. A child does not become demanding because it needs warmth. A heart does not become foolish because it longs to be met with care. The Stoic lesson here is not to chase the people who failed to give what they did not know how to offer. It is to stop letting their lack become your inner law. Maybe they were limited. Maybe they were wounded too. Maybe they loved you in the only way they understood. But their limitation does not have to become your lifelong sentence. You can recognize what was missing without spending the rest of your life begging the past to become generous. There comes a point in healing where you must become deeply honest with yourself, not bitter, not dramatic, just honest. You say, I needed more. You say, that silence shaped me. You say, I learned to become small because no one made room for my feelings. And then, very slowly, you begin to make room for yourself. You begin to listen inwardly with the patience you once wished someone else had shown. You stop rushing your emotions out of the room. You stop calling your sadness inconvenient. You stop treating your needs like evidence of weakness. This is how the mind begins to rest. Not because the past suddenly changes, but because you stop abandoning yourself in the same way you were once abandoned. You stop repeating the neglect inside your own thoughts. You stop saying, it does not matter, when it clearly did. You stop pushing pain down just because no one taught you how to hold it gently. You become the witness you needed. You become the calm presence your younger self kept waiting for. And as this night deepens, let the silence around you become different from the silence that hurt you. This silence is not rejection. This silence is not absence. This silence is not someone turning away from your pain. This silence is a safe place to return to yourself, a place where nothing is demanded, a place where you do not have to perform strength, a place where your heart can finally stop knocking on closed doors. Let your breath become proof that you are here now, not back there, not in the room where no one noticed, not in the old moment where your feelings had nowhere to go. Here, in this body, in this night, in this gentle space where you can begin to give yourself the attention you were denied. You do not need to make the past louder to prove it mattered. You do not need to keep replaying the absence to justify the ache. You can honor what hurt without living inside it. You can admit what was missing without becoming empty forever. You can rest, even if some people never understood the silence they left behind. Tonight, let the old neglect lose its authority. Let the unmet need soften without shame. Let the part of you that waited so long finally hear these words. You were worthy of care then, and you are worthy of peace now. And after the silence of old neglect begins to lose its power, another deeper chain asks to be broken. Because pain does not only live in what happened, it lives in the meaning the mind gave to what happened. It lives in the hidden belief that because your past wounded you, your future must keep paying for it. But tonight, the Stoic path invites you to see something different. Your past may explain your pain, but it does not have the right to imprison your life. There comes a moment when the soul gets tired of being punished by yesterday. The past becomes a life sentence when the mind stops seeing it as something that happened and starts seeing it as something that defines everything. One betrayal becomes proof that trust is dangerous. One failure becomes proof that you are not capable. One rejection becomes proof that you are hard to love. One painful season becomes the lens through which every new day is judged. And slowly, without noticing it, you stop living from what is true now and begin living from what hurt then. This is how the past quietly becomes a prison, not because the old event is still happening, but because the mind keeps carrying its rules. You may no longer be in the same place. You may no longer be around the same people. You may have grown, learned, survived, and changed, but inside, a part of you may still be obeying the old fear. It still whispers, do not relax, do not hope too much, do not trust too quickly, do not become happy, because something may take it away. The Stoics understood that suffering becomes heavier when we confuse memory with reality. A memory can visit the mind, but it is not the present moment. A painful thought can rise, but it is not a command. A wound can explain why you became careful, but it should not be allowed to become the ruler of your whole life. The past is a teacher when it gives wisdom. It becomes a tyrant when it steals possibility. Many people say they want to move on, but deep inside, they keep returning to the old scene because they believe something unfinished is waiting there. They think if they revisit it enough, they will finally understand why it happened. They think if they replay it from every angle, the pain will become fair. They think if they blame themselves properly, they can prevent it from ever happening again. But the mind can spend years searching for a perfect answer in a place where peace was never hidden. This is why Stoicism is so powerful at night. It does not ask you to pretend the past did not matter. It asks you to stop giving it authority over what is still alive in you. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that the present moment is the only place where life can be touched. Not yesterday, not the story in your head, not the scene that keeps returning, only now. This breath, this body, this quiet room, This chance to stop serving a sentence that no judge has the right to extend. To stop treating your past as a life sentence, you must first stop treating pain as identity. You are not the betrayal. You are not the abandonment. You are not the mistake. You are not the version of yourself that did not know better. You are not the years you lost trying to be loved correctly. You are the one who lived through it. And the one who lived through it is still here, still capable of choosing, still capable of becoming, still capable of resting without asking the past for permission. There is a deep difference between remembering and returning. Remembering is when the mind sees what happened and understands it. Returning is when the mind enters the old pain again, as if it is still trapped there. Remembering can bring wisdom. Returning often brings punishment. And many tired hearts do not realize they are not healing. They are revisiting the same prison cell and calling it reflection. The Stoic way is to stand at the door of that cell and say, "I see what happened, but I no longer live there." This sentence is simple, but it carries great freedom. You do not need to hate your past to leave it. You do not need to forget it to rise beyond it. You do not need everyone involved to apologize before you begin reclaiming your life. Closure from others can be comforting, but inner freedom cannot depend on people who may never become wise enough to give it. Your past may have shaped your first reactions, but it does not have to shape your final decisions. Maybe it made you guarded. Maybe it taught you to expect disappointment. Maybe it trained you to stay silent, to overthink, to prepare for loss before joy even arrives. But what was learned through pain can also be unlearned through awareness. Slowly, patiently, honestly. Not by forcing yourself to be healed, but by refusing to keep calling the old prison home. At night, when the mind begins to bring old chapters back, you can practice a different response. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" you can ask, "What part of me is still asking for release?" Instead of saying, "This ruined me," you can say, "This wounded me, but it did not finish me." Instead of believing, "I will always be this way," you can whisper, "I am allowed to change, even after pain taught me to stay the same." This is not pretending to be unaffected. It is choosing not to make your wound the author of every future page. Some people carry their past like a name. They introduce themselves through what hurt them. They measure every opportunity by what once went wrong. They distrust peace because chaos became familiar. But familiarity is not destiny. Just because pain feels known does not mean it is safe. Just because peace feels strange does not mean it is false. The Stoic heart learns to separate facts from sentences. The fact may be, "Something hurt you." The sentence your mind added may be, "Because of this, I can never be whole." The fact may be, "Someone left." The sentence may be, "I am not worth staying for." The fact may be, "You failed at something." The sentence may be, "I am a failure." Healing begins when you stop treating the sentence as truth. The mind can write harsh conclusions when it is afraid, but you are allowed to question them. Tonight, let your breathing become a quiet appeal against the sentence you have been serving. With every inhale, return to the present. With every exhale, release the belief that yesterday owns tomorrow. The past may knock, but you do not have to open the door with both hands. A memory may rise, but you do not have to follow it down every hallway. A regret may speak, but you do not have to sit at its feet like a student forever. You are not betraying your pain by choosing peace. Some people fear that if they stop suffering, it will mean what happened was acceptable. But peace is not approval. Peace is not saying, "It was okay." Peace is saying, "It will not keep taking from me." Peace is the moment you stop giving your remaining life to what already took enough. There is still a future inside you that has not been touched by the old story. There are calmer mornings, wiser choices, softer relationships, deeper sleep. A version of you that no longer reacts from fear before life has even spoken. A version of you that can remember without collapsing, protect yourself without closing completely, and move forward without dragging chains behind every step. So as this night continues, allow the past to become what it truly is, a chapter, not a cage, a lesson, not a life sentence, a wound, not a prophecy. You do not have to keep renewing the punishment. You do not have to keep signing your name under old pain. You do not have to live forever inside the moment that changed you. Let the mind soften around the story. Let the body feel the safety of now. Let the heart understand that survival was not the end of you. It was the bridge that carried you here. And here, in this quiet, you are allowed to begin again. And as the past begins to loosen its grip, another quiet pattern asks to be seen. Because sometimes the pain that controls the body does not come from one clear rejection. It comes from disappointment that was never spoken, never comforted, never repaired. It comes from hoping someone would show up differently, then teaching yourself not to hope too loudly again. And little by little, the body learns to expect the door to close before it even opens. There is a kind of disappointment that does not make noise when it enters you. It does not always arrive with shouting, betrayal, or a dramatic ending. Sometimes it arrives through small moments that keep repeating. Someone says they will be there, but they are not. Someone hears your pain, but does not move closer. Someone notices your effort, but gives nothing back. Someone makes you feel important for a moment, then distant the next. And because each moment seems too small to complain about, you carry it silently. But the body is always listening. The body remembers what the mouth never said. It remembers the times your excitement was met with coldness. It remembers the times your honesty was met with silence. It remembers the times you reached out and felt the emptiness on the other side. Even when you tell yourself, "It is fine," the body may not believe you. It may tighten before asking for help. It may prepare for disappointment before love has even spoken. It may feel rejection coming, even when nothing has happened yet. This is how unspoken disappointment trains the body. Not through one wound alone, but through repeated emotional signals. The mind may forget details, but the nervous system studies patterns. If care often disappeared, the body learns to expect disappearance. If warmth often turned into distance, the body learns to distrust warmth. If your needs were often delayed, dismissed, or treated like a burden, the body learns to feel unsafe when you need anything at all. And this is why some people feel anxious even in calm relationships. It is not always because the present is dangerous. Sometimes it is because the past trained the body to wait for rejection. A kind message may come, but the body wonders when the tone will change. Someone may love you sincerely, but the body prepares for them to leave. A peaceful moment may arrive, but the body does not relax fully because it remembers how quickly peace used to disappear. The Stoics understood that much of human suffering comes from expecting the world to follow the shape of old fear. We do not only suffer from what happens, we suffer from the meanings we attach before anything happens. A person takes longer to reply, and the mind says, "They are pulling away." Someone speaks with less warmth, and the body says, "Here it comes again." A plan changes, and the heart says, "I knew I should not have trusted this." The event may be small, but the reaction carries years inside it. This does not mean you are broken. It means your body tried to protect you. It learned from the evidence it had. If disappointment came often enough, expecting rejection became a shield. The body believed that if it expected the pain early, the pain would hurt less when it arrived, so it stayed alert. It watched faces. It measured tone. It searched for changes in energy. It became skilled at detecting the smallest sign that someone might be leaving emotionally. But protection can become a prison when the danger is no longer there. What once helped you survive can begin to steal peace from your present life. The body may reject kindness because kindness feels unfamiliar. It may question loyalty because loyalty was rare. It may turn small uncertainty into proof of abandonment. And slowly, you may start living as if every good thing is only waiting to disappoint you. This is the quiet damage of unspoken disappointment. It teaches the body to flinch before life touches it. It teaches the heart to lower its hope before anyone asks it to. It teaches the mind to prepare for loss instead of receiving what is here. And because you may not talk about it, people may only see the reaction, not the history behind it. They may call you distant, guarded, sensitive, or hard to reach. But they do not see the younger part of you that once reached openly and learned pain from the emptiness that answered. The Stoic way is not to shame yourself for these reactions. It is to observe them with wisdom. When the body tightens, you do not have to obey the first story it tells. You can pause, you can breathe, you can ask, is this rejection or is this memory? That question alone can begin to loosen the old pattern, because not every silence is abandonment, not every delay is proof, not every change in mood is danger, not every person in your present deserves the punishment written by your past. To heal this, you must learn to bring disappointment into the light before it becomes a hidden law inside you. This does not mean accusing people or demanding perfection. It means becoming honest with yourself. That hurt me. I felt forgotten. I expected care and did not receive it. I wanted to matter more in that moment. These simple truths are powerful because they stop the pain from sinking deeper into the body as confusion. Unspoken disappointment grows stronger when it has no language. It becomes tension. It becomes suspicion. It becomes emotional distance. It becomes the habit of expecting less, so you will not feel foolish for wanting more. But when you name it gently, you begin to separate the wound from your identity. You are not a difficult person because you feel disappointed. You are a human being whose heart was asking for connection. The Stoics would remind you that you cannot control whether everyone meets you with care. You cannot control whether someone keeps every promise. You cannot control whether people have the maturity to notice what they have neglected. But you can control what you do with the pain afterward. You can refuse to turn disappointment into a prophecy. You can refuse to let one person's absence become your expectation of everyone. You can refuse to train your body further in fear. Tonight, let the body learn something new. Let it learn that not every quiet moment is rejection. Let it learn that rest is not a trap. Let it learn that peace does not have to be earned by constant emotional readiness. Let your shoulders drop, as if they no longer need to brace for the next disappointment. Let your breathing slow as if life is not attacking you in this moment. Let your chest soften, as if hope is allowed to exist without being punished. There is a gentle strength in allowing yourself to expect good again, slowly, carefully, wisely, not blindly, not desperately, but with dignity. The Stoic does not demand that life never disappoints. The Stoic learns not to become ruled by the fear of disappointment. Because when fear becomes ruler, even love feels threatening. Even kindness feels suspicious. Even rest feels unsafe. You are allowed to be cautious without being closed. You are allowed to remember pain without expecting it everywhere. You are allowed to protect your peace without making every person prove they are not your past. This is where healing becomes mature. You stop pretending nothing hurt, but you also stop letting what hurt decide everything. As the night deepens, speak gently to the part of you that still expects rejection. Tell it, "Thank you for trying to protect me, but you do not have to guard every doorway tonight." Tell it, we are not back there anymore. Tell it, we can notice danger without creating it. Tell it, we can rest before all answers are clear. Because much of the body's fear comes from living ahead of the moment, already bracing for what has not happened. But right now, in this breath, rejection is not happening. In this room, you are not being abandoned. In this quiet, you are not being dismissed. You are here. You are breathing. You are safe enough to loosen one layer of defense. Let the old disappointments return to their proper place. They are memories, not warnings for every future love. They are lessons, not chains. They are evidence of what you endured, not proof of what you must always expect. Tonight, you do not have to prepare for rejection before it comes. You do not have to shrink your hope to survive. You do not have to make your body pay forever for the care that failed to arrive before. Let the body rest from bracing. Let the heart rest from expecting less. Let the mind rest from turning every silence into a sentence against you. What disappointed you may have trained you, but it does not have to own you. And after the body begins to stop expecting rejection, another buried pattern may rise from underneath it. Because fear does not only come from what disappointed you. Sometimes fear comes from the moments where something happened and you could not stop it. The moment where your voice felt too small. The moment where your choice felt taken away. The moment where life moved with force and all you could do was stand there, feel it, and survive it. There are memories the mind replays, not because it wants pain, but because it is still searching for power. Powerlessness leaves a deep mark on the mind. It is one thing to go through something painful and still feel like you had a choice. It is another thing to feel trapped inside a moment, unable to change what was happening, unable to protect yourself, unable to make someone understand, unable to stop the loss, the betrayal, the shame, the ending, or the silence that followed. Those are the moments the mind often returns to at night, not because you are weak, not because you enjoy suffering, but because part of you is still trying to find the door that was missing then. The mind replays powerless moments because it hates unfinished danger. It wants to go back and do something, say something, notice something earlier, leave sooner, fight harder, stay quieter, choose differently. It tells you, if we review this enough, maybe we can find the point where everything could have changed. So it keeps rewinding the scene. It studies the faces, the words, the timing, the signs. It tries to turn memory into control. But memory cannot change the event. It can only keep your body living near it. This is why some thoughts feel like they attack you when you are trying to rest. You close your eyes, and suddenly your mind brings back the moment you felt small, the moment you were ignored, the moment you were blamed unfairly, the moment you trusted someone who used your trust carelessly, the moment you needed help and no one came. It feels cruel that the mind would bring these things back when you are tired, but the mind is not trying to punish you. It is trying, in its confused way, to protect you from ever feeling that helpless again. The problem is that the mind often protects by reopening the wound. It believes that if it keeps the memory fresh, you will never be caught off guard again. It thinks pain is preparation. It thinks replaying is wisdom. It thinks staying alert is safety. But over time, this creates a life where the past keeps entering the present through the back door. You are lying in a quiet room, yet your body feels like it is back in the old moment. Your heart beats faster. Your jaw tightens. Your chest feels heavy. Your thoughts become sharp. The danger is gone, but the body is responding as if the scene has returned. The Stoics understood that the mind suffers deeply when it argues with what has already happened. Not because what happened was acceptable, not because the wound was small, but because the past, is the one place where effort can no longer change the facts. You can learn from it. You can grow beyond it. You can choose differently now, but you cannot enter yesterday and rescue the version of yourself who did not yet know what you know now. And this is where many people become trapped. They judge their past self with their present wisdom. They say, "Why didn't I speak? Why didn't I leave? Why didn't I know? Why did I allow that? Why did I freeze?" But this kind of questioning often ignores the truth of the moment. The version of you who was there did not have the full knowledge you have now. That version may have been afraid, confused, shocked, dependent, young, tired, unprepared, emotionally overwhelmed, or simply doing the best they could with the strength available in that exact moment. It is easy to be brave in hindsight. It is harder to be clear when your nervous system is flooded, when someone has power over you, when your heart is attached, when your mind cannot understand what is happening fast enough to respond. So tonight, you must stop treating your past self like a criminal for not having the tools your present self has earned through pain. Powerlessness often brings shame, because the mind mistakes not having control for not having worth. It says, "If I were stronger, this would not have happened." But strength does not prevent every wound. Wisdom does not prevent every betrayal. Goodness does not prevent every loss. Sometimes painful things happen not because you were weak, but because life, people, timing, and circumstances placed you in a moment where control was limited. The Stoic way is to separate what was yours from what was not yours. Your intention was yours. Your character was yours. Your response, as much as you could choose it, was yours. But the choices of others were not yours. Their cruelty was not yours. Their absence was not yours. Their dishonesty was not yours. Their inability to value you properly was not yours. The event may have entered your life, but not every part of it belongs to your responsibility. This distinction matters because without it, the mind keeps dragging you back to scenes where you are trying to control what was never in your hands. It is like trying to hold water after it has already spilled. You can learn to carry the cup differently next time, but you cannot make the spilled water return to the glass by staring at the floor all night. And so the question becomes, what does the replay want from you? Sometimes it wants justice. Sometimes it wants understanding. Sometimes it wants protection. Sometimes it wants you to finally say, "That was not okay." Sometimes it wants you to stop minimizing what hurt. Sometimes it wants you to stop blaming yourself for being human in a moment where you needed support, not judgment. But the replay does not need to become your master. You can listen for the message without living inside the scene. You can say, "I understand why this memory is here. It is trying to show me where I felt powerless. It is asking me to reclaim power now." And reclaiming power now does not mean changing the past. It means changing your relationship with it. You reclaim power when you stop calling yourself foolish for what you did not know. You reclaim power when you set boundaries in the present because the past taught you what happens without them. You reclaim power when you stop chasing explanations from people who benefit from your confusion. You reclaim power when you let the old scene become information instead of identity. You reclaim power when you say, "I was powerless then, but I am not powerless in how I care for myself now." This is the sacred difference between being wounded and being owned. A wound is something that happened to you. Being owned is when that wound controls your thoughts, your sleep, your trust, your choices, your sense of worth, and your ability to breathe freely in a safe room. Tonight, the work is not to deny the wound. The work is to stop letting it hold the keys to your inner world. When the memory comes, do not fight it with fear. Fighting often makes it louder. Instead, meet it with quiet authority. I see you. I know why you came. You are a memory, not a command. You are a scene, not my whole life. You are something I survived, not something I must keep living. This is how the Stoic mind begins to regain its throne, not by destroying thought, but by refusing to kneel before every thought that enters. There is also grief in powerless moments, grief for what you could not protect, grief for the version of you who had to endure what should have been gentler, grief for the words that never came, grief for the help that arrived too late or never arrived at all. Let that grief be real, but do not let it become a cage. Grief can wash through you without becoming your address. Tonight, as the room stays quiet, remind your body that the old moment is not happening now. Your breath is happening now. The softness beneath you is happening now. The darkness around you is not the same darkness that once made you afraid. This silence is not the silence of being trapped. This silence is the silence of being allowed to rest. Let your hands loosen, because there is nothing to hold together right now. Let your shoulders drop, because you do not have to carry the old scene through another night. Let your jaw unclench, because the words you could not say then do not have to keep burning inside your mouth now. The present is offering you something the past did not. Space. Space to breathe. Space to understand. Space to stop repeating the moment, as if repetition will finally make it obey you. You are not behind in healing because the memory still comes. Healing is not proven by never remembering. Healing is proven by remembering with less obedience. The memory may knock, but you do not have to let it rearrange the whole house. The thought may rise, but you do not have to follow it into the old fear. The feeling may return, but you can hold it from the safety of now. And maybe for the first time, you can speak gently to the version of yourself who felt powerless, not with blame, not with anger, not with the harsh voice of hindsight, but with mercy. You did what you could. You made it through. You are not trapped there anymore. I will not keep punishing you for surviving. Let those words sink slowly, because some part of you has waited a long time to hear them. The mind keeps replaying powerless moments because it wants freedom, but freedom will not come from finding the perfect way to rewrite what happened. Freedom comes from realizing that the past may have taken a moment, a season, or a piece of innocence, but it did not take your right to return to yourself. Tonight, you do not have to solve the old scene. You do not have to keep searching for the missing power inside a memory. The power is here now, in the way you breathe, in the way you choose rest, in the way you stop blaming yourself, in the way you refuse to live forever at the mercy of what once made you feel small. Let the replay fade into distance. Let the nervous system learn that danger has passed. Let the mind understand that it does not need to keep watching the same pain to keep you safe. You were powerless then, perhaps, but you are present now. And presence is where your power begins again. And after the mind begins to understand why it replays the moments where you felt powerless, a deeper practice now opens. Because not every memory disappears when you understand it. Not every wound becomes silent the moment you name it. Sometimes healing is not the memory leaving forever. Sometimes healing is learning how to let the memory rise without handing it the keys to your whole night. A painful memory does not need to control you simply because it visits you. There is a rare discipline in allowing a memory to exist without obeying it. Most people either fight the memory or follow it. They fight it by saying, I should not be thinking about this. I should be over this. Why is this still coming back? Or they follow it by entering the old scene again, letting it pull them into the same fear, the same shame, the same anger, the same helplessness. But there is a third way, a quieter way, a stoic way. You can notice the memory without becoming its servant. This is not easy, because painful memories often arrive with the force of truth. They do not feel like simple thoughts. They feel like warnings. They feel like commands. They feel like the past has returned to tell you who you are. A memory may rise, and suddenly the body tightens, the chest becomes heavy, the breathing changes, the mind begins to create meanings. This is why I cannot trust. This is why I am not safe. This is why I must stay guarded. This is why I will always be this way. But the memory is not always telling the truth about the present. It may be telling the truth about what hurt before, but not about what is happening now. That difference matters. A memory can be real and still not be current. A pain can be valid and still not be a command. A wound can deserve compassion and still not deserve control. The Stoics understood that the mind becomes free when it learns to place space between what appears inside and what the soul chooses to do with it. A thought appears, a memory appears, a fear appears, but appearance is not authority. Just because something enters the mind does not mean it deserves the throne. Epictetus taught that people are disturbed not only by events, but by the judgments they attach to events. And this is where the discipline begins. Not in pretending nothing happened, but in refusing to let the memory write fresh judgments over your present peace. When a painful memory appears at night, the old habit may be to obey it immediately. If it says, "You are in danger," you become alert. If it says, "You were foolish," you begin punishing yourself. If it says, "They never cared," you begin arguing with ghosts. If it says, "You should have done more," you start building a case against your past self. This obedience can happen so quickly that you may not even notice you have given the memory power. 1 second you are lying down, and the next second you are back inside an old version of yourself, breathing as if the pain is happening again. But tonight you are invited to slow that reaction, to let the memory be present without letting it take your hand and drag you backward. You can say, "This is a memory." Simple words, but powerful. This is a memory. This is not the whole of me. This is not this room. This is not this night. This is not a law I must obey. When you name it that way, you begin to return authority to the present. A painful memory is like a visitor knocking at the door. Many people panic and either try to lock every window or throw the door open and let the visitor destroy the house. But the Stoic mind learns to stand calmly at the door. It does not deny the knock. It does not pretend no one is there. It simply refuses to let the visitor decide how the house will be arranged. You can acknowledge the memory without giving it permission to command your body, your breath, your beliefs, or your sleep. This discipline is rare because it requires patience with discomfort. Most people want immediate escape. They want the memory gone now. They want the feeling removed quickly. They want peace without having to sit beside the part of them that still trembles. But some memories soften only when they are no longer treated like enemies. If you fight them with panic, they grow sharper. If you obey them without question, they grow stronger. But if you observe them with calm attention, they begin to lose their authority. Letting a memory exist does not mean you approve of what happened. It does not mean you are inviting the pain to stay forever. It means you are no longer exhausting yourself, trying to force the mind to become blank. The goal of Stoic rest is not an empty mind, it is a governed mind. A mind where thoughts may pass through, but character remains seated. A mind where pain may speak, but wisdom chooses the response. There is a deep power in saying, "I do not need to solve this memory tonight," because many painful memories arrive with urgency. They make you feel as though you must understand everything immediately. You must analyze every detail. You must find the lesson, the blame, the reason, the missing answer. But the night is not always the place for investigation. Sometimes the night is the place for release. You can tell the memory, "I see you. I will not deny you, but I will not follow you into another hour of suffering." This is the discipline of non-obedience. The memory says, "Return." You answer, "No, I am here." The memory says, "Fear this again." You answer, "I have learned what I needed." The memory says, "Punish yourself." You answer, "I will not harm the person who survived." The memory says, "Stay awake and prepare." You answer, "Preparation is not needed in this moment. Rest is needed." At first, this may feel strange. The mind may not trust it. It may say, "If I stop thinking about this, I will become careless. If I stop replaying it, I will forget the lesson. If I stop staying alert, it may happen again." But wisdom does not require constant suffering. You can keep the lesson without keeping the wound open. You can remember the truth without reliving the injury. You can become wiser without sleeping beside the old pain every night. This is where the body begins to learn a new language. Instead of tightening when the memory rises, you teach it to breathe. Instead of clenching the jaw, you let the face soften. Instead of following the thought into every detail, you return to the simple rhythm of air entering and leaving. Breath becomes the bridge between the old world and the present one. It tells the body, "We are not there, we are here, we are safe enough to stop obeying." And slowly, the memory changes shape. It may still exist, but it no longer fills the whole room. It becomes something you can see from a distance, a chapter, a scene, a wound that has been witnessed. Not a master, not a prison, not a prophecy. It may knock again on another night, but each time you meet it without obedience, you weaken its rule over you. There is no shame in remembering. The mind remembers because it is human. The heart aches because it once cared. The body reacts because it tried to protect you. But there is freedom in realizing that every reaction can be softened with awareness. You are not required to become a prisoner each time a painful image rises. You are not required to return to the old courtroom, the old silence, the old rejection, the old powerlessness. You can notice the doorway and choose not to enter. Tonight, let this be your quiet practice. If a memory comes, do not chase it away with fear. Do not follow it with obedience. Let it stand at the edge of your awareness. See it, name it, breathe around it. Then return to the weight of your body resting here. Return to the calm beneath you. Return to the truth that this moment is not the same as that moment. You are allowed to let pain pass through without giving it your whole identity. You are allowed to remember without collapsing. You are allowed to feel without surrendering your peace. This is not weakness. This is inner command. This is the rare strength of a person who no longer needs every storm inside the mind to become a storm in the soul. And as sleep draws closer, let the memory become smaller than your breath. Let the old scene become softer than the silence around you. Let the part of you that once obeyed every painful thought understand that a new ruler has returned. The memory may exist, but tonight it does not lead. And after you learn to let a painful memory exist without obeying it, another quiet truth begins to appear. Some of the things you call me may not truly be you at all. They may be old protections, old defenses, old ways of surviving rooms where your softness was not safe. And if you have carried them long enough, they can begin to feel like your personality. There is a version of you beneath the habits pain created. This is one of the most important things to understand before the mind can rest deeply. Not every reaction is your nature. Not every fear is your truth. Not every wall is your wisdom. Sometimes what you call your personality is only the shape you had to take so life would hurt less. You may say, "I am just distant." But maybe you became distant because closeness once cost you peace. You may say, "I do not trust people." But maybe distrust became your shelter after honesty was mishandled. You may say, "I am too independent." But maybe you learned not to need anyone because needing someone once left you disappointed. Old survival habits can become so familiar that you mistake them for identity. You may not even remember when they began. The constant overthinking, the quick apology, the need to read every change in someone's voice, the habit of expecting disappointment before it arrives, the urge to stay busy so silence does not expose what you feel, the way you laugh off pain before anyone can ask a deeper question, the way you leave emotionally before people have a chance to leave you. These patterns may feel natural now, but natural does not always mean original. Sometimes it only means repeated. The Stoics believed that a person must learn to examine the self with honesty, not with cruelty, not with shame, but with clear eyes. Because the unexamined mind becomes ruled by old training. It reacts before wisdom speaks. It assumes before truth arrives. It protects even when there is no danger. It carries habits from past storms into peaceful rooms and then wonders why rest feels impossible. A survival habit usually begins as protection. If your feelings were dismissed, you may have learned to hide them. If your boundaries were punished, you may have learned to please people quickly. If your honesty was used against you, you may have learned to speak carefully or not at all. If love felt unstable, you may have learned to watch for signs of withdrawal. If peace was often interrupted, you may have learned to stay alert even when everything seems calm. At first, these habits may have helped you survive. They may have kept you from being hurt more deeply. They may have helped you move through seasons where you did not have better tools, but what protects you in one season can imprison you in another. A wall that saved you during a storm can block the sunlight when the storm is gone. A habit that helped you endure pain can prevent you from receiving peace. This is why some people feel trapped inside themselves. They want closeness, but their body pulls away. They want rest, but their mind keeps scanning for danger. They want honesty, but their voice freezes. They want to be gentle, but their defense comes out sharp. They want to trust, but suspicion arrives first. Then they blame themselves and say, "This is just who I am." But maybe it is not who you are. Maybe it is who you became when life required you to survive before you had time to understand yourself. There is mercy in knowing this, because if a habit was learned, then slowly it can be unlearned. If a defense was built, then slowly it can be lowered. If a reaction was trained into your body, then slowly a new response can be practiced. You are not fixed forever in the shape of your pain. The Stoic way is to pause before accepting every old pattern as truth. When you feel the need to withdraw, pause and ask, "Is this wisdom or is this fear?" When you feel the urge to over-explain, ask, "Is this honesty or is this the old need to be safe from misunderstanding?" When you feel guilty for resting, ask, "Is this responsibility or is this the old belief that my worth depends on being useful?" When you feel yourself expecting rejection, ask, "Is this happening now or is my body remembering something old?" These questions create space, and space is where freedom begins. Without space, the habit takes over. With space, you get a choice. You may still feel the old reaction, but you do not have to become it. You may still feel the wall rising, but you can notice it before it shuts out everything good. You may still hear the old voice saying, "Do not trust, do not rest, do not soften," but you can answer with calm authority, "Thank you for trying to protect me, but I am not in that same place anymore." This is not easy because survival habits often feel safer than healing. Healing asks you to meet life differently. It asks you to loosen the grip, to breathe before reacting, to receive care without suspecting it immediately, to speak your truth without preparing for punishment, to let silence be peaceful instead of threatening, to rest without proving you deserve it. These things can feel strange at first, because the body may confuse unfamiliar peace with danger, but peace is allowed to feel unfamiliar at the beginning. That does not make it false. A calm life may feel uncomfortable to a nervous system trained by chaos. A kind person may feel suspicious to a heart trained by disappointment. A quiet night may feel too empty to a mind trained by constant defense. But with time, the body can learn that not every calm moment is waiting to collapse. Not every gentle person is hiding a wound. Not every soft place is a trap. To stop confusing survival with personality, you must return to the part of yourself that existed before fear became your teacher. Maybe that part was curious, warm, playful, open, trusting, creative, peaceful. Maybe that part loved freely before love became complicated. Maybe that part spoke honestly before honesty was punished. Maybe that part rested naturally before life taught you to stay alert. That self may feel far away, but it is not gone. It has only been covered by layers of protection. Tonight, you are not forcing those layers off. You are simply noticing them. You are saying, this wall was built for a reason. You are saying, this fear once tried to help me. You are saying, this habit may have protected me, but it is not my whole identity. That kind of understanding is powerful because it removes shame. You stop hating yourself for the ways you adapted. You stop calling yourself broken because you learned to survive. You stop mistaking your defenses for flaws in your character. The mind rests more easily when it is no longer fighting itself. When you understand why a habit began, you no longer need to attack it. You can guide it. You can soften it. You can teach it that your life has changed. This is the Stoic discipline of self-command, not controlling yourself with harshness, but leading yourself with wisdom. So as this night settles around you, begin to separate the true self from the trained self. The true self is not the panic that rises first. The true self is the awareness that notices the panic. The true self is not the wall that appears. The true self is the quiet strength that asks whether the wall is still needed. The true self is not the old defense. The true self is the one learning how to live without being ruled by it. Let your breath remind the body that it does not have to perform survival tonight. You do not have to scan every silence. You do not have to prepare for every loss. You do not have to explain every feeling before it is allowed to exist. You do not have to remain loyal to the version of yourself pain created. You can thank the old habits for bringing you this far and still decide they do not get to lead you forever. Maybe you were never cold. Maybe you were careful. Maybe you were never difficult. Maybe you were unheard. Maybe you were never too serious. Maybe you were tired from carrying what no one saw. Maybe you were never distant by nature. Maybe your heart simply learned to step back so it would not be wounded again. And now, slowly, you can return. Not all at once, not by force, not by pretending the past did not shape you, but by choosing, night after night, to stop calling protection your personality, to stop calling fear your wisdom, to stop calling numbness your peace, to stop calling survival your destiny. Tonight, let the old armor loosen. Let the body feel that it is safe enough to put down one defense. Let the mind understand that it can protect you without imprisoning you. Let the heart remember that beneath every survival habit, there is still a living self waiting to breathe freely. You are not only what happened to you. You are not only how you learned to cope. You are not only the guarded version that pain trained into existence. There is more of you beneath all that. And tonight, quietly, patiently, without pressure, that deeper self is allowed to come home. And after you begin to separate your true self from the survival habits pain created, another quiet truth rises in the stillness. Some wounds keep shaping your rest, not because they are stronger than you, but because they were never given a name. They were carried as moods, reactions, tiredness, overthinking, distance, heaviness, and strange sadness. And because they were never named, they never knew where to go. There are pains the mouth never speaks, but the body still sleeps beside them. A wound you never name does not disappear. It hides. It becomes the tightness in your chest when the room becomes quiet. It becomes the sudden sadness that arrives when nothing is wrong. It becomes the restless turning in bed when your body is tired, but your mind refuses to settle. It becomes the habit of staying awake, not because you want to, but because something inside you does not feel safe enough to let go. Many people think rest is only about being physically tired, but deep rest is also emotional permission. The body can lie down, the eyes can close, the room can be peaceful, and still the inner world remains alert, because unnamed pain is still moving beneath the surface. The mind may not know what it is carrying, but the nervous system does. It remembers the moments you dismissed. It remembers the feelings you buried. It remembers the pain you told yourself was too small to matter. This is why unnamed wounds are so powerful at night. During the day, they can hide behind movement. You can distract yourself with work, conversations, noise, duties and screens. You can appear calm. You can be useful. You can keep going. But when night comes, there is less to hide behind. The body stops performing. The mind stops running forward, and the soul begins to whisper, "There is something here you never allowed yourself to understand." Sometimes the wound is not one clear event. Sometimes it is the slow pain of always being overlooked, the quiet ache of not being chosen, the disappointment of needing comfort and learning not to ask for it, the sadness of being around people, yet feeling emotionally alone, the shame of being made to feel like your feelings were too much, the grief of becoming strong before you were ready. These things may not have had a name when they happened, but they still shaped the way you learned to rest. If a wound is unnamed, the mind cannot place it properly. It floats. It attaches itself to ordinary moments. A small silence feels like rejection. A delayed response feels like abandonment. A tired body feels like failure. A quiet night feels like danger, not because the present is truly harmful, but because the old pain is still unrecognized. It has not been sorted. It has not been held with clarity, so it keeps borrowing the face of whatever is happening now. The Stoics believed that clear seeing is the beginning of freedom. You cannot govern what you refuse to examine. You cannot release what you keep calling nothing. You cannot rest from a burden while pretending you are not carrying it. This is not about becoming lost in the past. It is about giving honest names to the things that have been ruling you in silence. There is power in saying, "That was loneliness." There is power in saying, "That was neglect." There is power in saying, "That was disappointment." There is power in saying, "That was grief." There is power in saying, "That was fear." A named wound becomes less mysterious. It stops feeling like a shadow chasing you through every quiet hour. It becomes something you can look at with wisdom, something you can hold without becoming it. But many people avoid naming pain because they fear what will happen if they admit it. They worry it will make them weak. They worry it will make the wound larger. They worry they will sound ungrateful, dramatic, or bitter. So they keep reducing what happened. They say, "It was not that bad." They say, "Other people had worse." They say, "I should be over it." But the body does not heal because you compare your pain to someone else's. The body heals when your pain is finally met with truth. The Stoic path is not to exaggerate pain, and it is not to deny it. It is to see it accurately, to call it by its proper name, to say, "This happened, it affected me, it does not define me, but it did shape me." That honesty is not weakness, it is order. It is the mind putting the inner house back into balance. It is the soul no longer stumbling through rooms filled with unnamed things. When you never name a wound, you may start treating its effects as flaws in your character. You may think you are simply restless, when really you are carrying unresolved fear. You may think you are simply hard to love, when really you learned to guard yourself from disappointment. You may think you are simply too sensitive, when really your body remembers years of being dismissed. You may think you are lazy because you are tired, when really you have been emotionally bracing for longer than anyone can see. This is why compassion matters, not the shallow kind that makes excuses for everything, but the deep kind that tells the truth without cruelty. You are not broken because you struggle to rest. You are not failing because silence feels heavy. You are not weak because old emotions still move through your body. You are a human being whose inner world may have been carrying names it was never taught to speak. And tonight, this meditation becomes a place where those names can finally rise without fear. Not loudly, not forcefully, not all at once, just gently, one honest truth at a time. Maybe the feeling in your chest is grief. Maybe the pressure in your mind is fear. Maybe the heaviness in your body is disappointment. Maybe the restlessness is old loneliness asking to be noticed. Maybe what you called nothing was something all along. The moment you name a wound, you begin to separate yourself from it. You are no longer only drowning in the feeling. You are witnessing it. You are no longer saying, "This is me." You are saying, "This is something I have carried." And what you have carried can be put down slowly. What you have named can be understood. What you have understood can begin to soften. This does not mean every pain will vanish tonight. Healing is not a trick. Rest is not forced. But something changes when the mind stops pretending. Something inside you exhales when it no longer has to hide from itself. The body feels safer when the truth is allowed into the room, because denial keeps the nervous system confused. Honesty gives it direction. So as the night becomes deeper, let yourself stop running from the unnamed. You do not have to explain it perfectly. You do not have to build a full story around it. You do not have to prove it to anyone. You only need enough honesty to say, "Something in me was hurt, and I am ready to stop calling it nothing." Let that sentence be gentle. Let it open a door without forcing you through it. Let it remind you that rest is not only sleep. Rest is also the moment you stop hiding from your own heart. You can breathe with the wound without becoming the wound. You can name the pain without giving it control. You can admit what shaped you without letting it finish writing your life. This is the Stoic way. Clear eyes, steady breath, honest naming, calm release. Tonight, the wounds you never named do not have to keep ruling your rest from the dark. They can come into the light of your awareness, where they are no longer monsters, no longer mysteries, no longer silent laws inside your body. They are wounds, they are real, but they are not your master. And as you soften into this quiet, let the body learn that the truth is safe now. Let the mind learn that naming pain is not the same as returning to it. Let the heart learn that what was hidden can be held gently. You do not have to sleep beside unnamed pain forever. Tonight, you begin to give it a name. And in naming it, you begin to take your rest back. And after the hidden wounds begin to receive their names, a deeper separation becomes possible. Because once you can see what hurt you, you can also begin to see what is still truly you beneath it. Pain may have entered your story, but it was never meant to become your entire identity. What happened may have shaped your reactions, your fears, your habits, and your silence. But it does not have the final right to define who you are. There is a difference between being changed by pain and being reduced to it. Many people never learn this difference. They go through something difficult, and because the experience was so strong, they start believing it is now the center of who they are. A betrayal happens, and they become the person who cannot trust. A rejection happens, and they become the person who is never chosen. A failure happens, and they become the person who ruins things. A season of emotional neglect happens, and they become the person whose needs do not matter. Slowly, the event turns into a name. The wound turns into a personality. The past turns into a mirror. But Stoicism asks you to pause before accepting any painful event as your definition. It asks you to look at what happened with clear eyes, then ask, is this the truth of my whole being, or is this only something I endured? That question can save years of suffering, because the mind, when wounded, often writes conclusions too quickly. It says, because I was hurt, I am damaged. It says, because I was abandoned, I am not worth staying for. It says, because I failed, I am a failure. But these are not facts. These are sentences written by pain. What happened to you is part of your story, but it is not the author of your soul. It may explain why you became careful. It may explain why you learned to hide certain feelings. It may explain why rest feels difficult, why trust comes slowly, why silence sometimes feels heavy. But explanation is not identity. A storm can explain why a tree has scars, but it does not turn the tree into the storm. It is still a tree, still rooted, still alive, still capable of growing in another direction. This is where many tired hearts need gentleness, because when pain has been carried for a long time, it becomes familiar. And what is familiar can begin to feel true. If you have spent years being guarded, softness may feel false. If you have spent years being misunderstood, being seen may feel uncomfortable. If you have spent years surviving, peace may feel strange. But strange does not mean wrong. It only means your body is learning a new language. The Stoic practice is to separate the event from the self. The event may be, someone betrayed me. The self is not, I am impossible to love. The event may be, I was neglected. The self is not, my needs are a burden. The event may be, I made a mistake. The self is not, I am beyond repair. The event may be, I was powerless then. The self is not, I will always be powerless. This separation is not denial. It is truth placed in its proper position. When you fail to separate what happened from who you became, the past keeps dressing itself as your nature. You may say, I am just not a trusting person, when really you were taught that trust could be dangerous. You may say, I am not emotional, when really your emotions were once unwelcome. You may say, I do not need anyone, when really needing people once brought disappointment. You may say, I am always anxious, when really your body learned to prepare for pain before it arrived. But tonight, let this land softly. You are not only the pattern, you are the awareness noticing the pattern, and the one who can notice is already more free than the habit itself. The Stoics believed that character is not what happens to a person, but how a person chooses to meet what happens. This does not mean you had full control over every wound. You did not. It does not mean you should blame yourself for being affected. You should not. It means that even after pain, there remains a place inside you where choice can return, a place where you can decide, this may have shaped me, but it will not rule me. A place where you can say, I can honor what I survived without becoming loyal to the wound. This practice takes patience because the mind may keep pulling old labels back over you. It may say, no, this is who we are now. But you can answer, no, this is what we learned, and what was learned can be softened. The mind may say, we must stay guarded forever. You can answer, we can be wise without being closed. The mind may say, we are damaged. You can answer, we were hurt, and we are healing. The mind may say, we lost too much. You can answer, we are still here, and what remains can still grow. There is power in changing the language you use inside yourself. Words can become chains or keys. When you say, "I am broken," the body hears a sentence. When you say, "I am carrying pain," the body hears possibility. When you say, "I am ruined," the mind sees no path. When you say, "I was wounded," the mind can begin to imagine care. The difference may sound small, but to the inner world, it is enormous. One traps you inside identity. The other gives the pain a place to move through. At night, this matters even more, because the dark can make old stories feel bigger. When you are tired, the mind may return to familiar conclusions. It may try to convince you that the past is proof, that old pain is prophecy, that who you became under pressure is who you must remain forever. But the night can also become a place of quiet correction, a place where you gently separate the fact from the false identity built around it. You can breathe and say, "That happened, but it is not all of me." You can exhale and say, "That changed me, but it does not own me." You can soften your shoulders and say, "I became guarded for a reason, but I am allowed to become gentle again." You can let your chest loosen and say, "I survived, but I do not have to live in survival forever." This is not about returning to who you were before everything happened. Sometimes life changes you too deeply for that, but healing is not always going back. Sometimes healing is becoming someone new without letting pain be the only sculptor. You may not become the untouched version of yourself, but you can become a wiser version, a steadier version, a version with boundaries, depth, compassion, and clarity. A version that remembers but is not ruled by memory. A version that carries scars but does not mistake scars for shame. To separate what happened from who you became, you must stop giving every wound a permanent title. You are not the abandoned one. You are someone who experienced absence and is learning presence. You are not the betrayed one. You are someone who was hurt by dishonesty and is learning discernment. You are not the rejected one. You are someone whose worth was not recognized by certain people, but was never destroyed by their blindness. You are not the damaged one. You are someone whose inner world is asking to be treated with patience. And maybe this is the gentlest truth of all. Some of the qualities you dislike in yourself began as attempts to protect something precious. Your guardedness may have been protecting your tenderness. Your distance may have been protecting your hope. Your silence may have been protecting your dignity. Your caution may have been protecting your heart from another careless hand. So do not hate the version of you that learned to survive. Thank it. Understand it. Then guide it towards something softer. Because survival is not the final form of the soul. Tonight, as your body rests deeper into stillness, let the old story loosen. Let the past take its proper size, not erased, not denied, not worshipped, just placed where it belongs. Behind you, not above you. Within your history, not at the center of your identity. A chapter, not your name. You can carry wisdom from what happened without carrying the sentence that pain wrote over you. You can remember the lesson without becoming the wound. You can respect your scars without letting them decide how much peace you are allowed to receive. Let the mind become quiet around this truth. You are more than the thing that hurt you. You are more than the reaction that followed. You are more than the protection you built. You are more than the version of yourself that had to endure what no one else saw. What happened to you belongs to the past. Who you are becoming belongs to this breath, this night, this choice, this slow return to yourself. And tonight, you are allowed to become more than survival. And after you begin to separate what happened to you from who you became, another hidden burden rises into the light. Because once the past loses its power to define you, shame may try to keep its place. Shame does not always speak loudly. Sometimes it survives quietly, hidden behind silence, secrecy, and the fear that if people knew the full truth of your pain, they would see you differently. But the Stoic mind does not heal by hiding from what hurts. It heals by bringing reason into the room. Shame grows in darkness, but it begins to weaken when truth looks at it calmly. Shame is different from regret. Regret says, "I did something I wish I had done differently." Shame says, "Something is wrong with me." Regret points to an action. Shame attacks the self. Regret can teach. Shame can imprison. Regret can lead to wisdom. Shame often leads to hiding. And when shame is left alone in silence, it becomes larger than the truth. It begins to tell stories. It says, "You are the only one who feels this way. You are too damaged. You are too weak. You should have known better. You should have healed by now." But shame is not a wise teacher. Shame is often fear wearing the mask of truth. Many people carry shame because they were hurt in ways they never learned how to explain. They feel ashamed for being affected, ashamed for trusting the wrong person, ashamed for staying too long, ashamed for needing love, ashamed for freezing when they wanted to speak, ashamed for breaking down after trying so hard to appear strong. And because the feeling is painful, they bury it. They smile. They continue. They become useful. They become quiet. They hope time will erase what silence has been protecting. But silence does not always heal shame. Sometimes silence feeds it. When you never speak truth to shame, shame becomes the only voice in the room. It repeats its accusations without being challenged. It takes one painful memory and builds a whole identity around it. It convinces you that what happened is proof of your weakness instead of evidence of what you endured. And when the night comes, when there are no distractions left, shame begins to whisper from the places you tried to avoid. The Stoics would tell you to examine the thought, not obey it. Shame says, "You are ruined." Reason asks, "Is that true?" Shame says, "You should have been stronger." Reason asks, "What strength was possible in that exact moment?" Shame says, "No one would understand." Reason asks, "Does being misunderstood make the pain unreal?" Shame says, "This defines you." Reason answers, "No, this is something that happened, something you felt, something you survived. It is not the whole of who you are." This is where shame begins to weaken. Not through harsh self-attack, not through pretending you feel nothing, but through calm questioning. Shame survives because it hates being examined. It wants you emotional, frightened, hidden, and alone. It wants you to accept its sentence without asking for evidence. But reason is like a lamp in a dark room. It does not shout. It simply reveals what is there and what is not there. Often, when you look closely, shame is built on unfair judgments. You judge your past self with the knowledge you only gained later. You blame yourself for not escaping before you knew you were trapped. You criticize yourself for not speaking when fear had taken your voice. You condemn yourself for needing care in a moment when any human heart would have needed care. You call yourself foolish for trusting when trust itself was not the crime. The carelessness of another person was the wound. Reason helps you return responsibility to its proper owner. If someone used your honesty against you, their betrayal belongs to them. If someone dismissed your pain, their coldness belongs to them. If someone made you feel small for having needs, their lack of tenderness belongs to them. You may still learn from what happened. You may still grow wiser, but you do not have to carry every piece of the shame as if it all belongs to you. This is one of the great freedoms of Stoicism, the ability to separate fact from judgment. The fact may be, "I was hurt." The judgment may be, "I was weak." The fact may be, "I made a mistake." The judgment may be, "I am a failure." The fact may be, "I stayed silent." The judgment may be, "I am cowardly." But a fact is not the same as the story shame attaches to it. A fact can be faced. A false judgment can be released. At night, shame often becomes louder because the mind has fewer things to hold. The body is still. The room is quiet. The old emotions rise. And suddenly, the thought returns. Why did I let that happen? Why did I feel that? Why am I still affected? But tonight, you do not need to answer shame with panic. You can answer it with reason. You can say, I was human. You can say, I was learning. You can say, I did not have all the strength, safety, or clarity I have now. You can say, my pain is not proof that I am broken. It is proof that something mattered. There is a deep mercy in this, because many people think healing requires them to hate the version of themselves who suffered. But healing often begins when you stop standing above that version with judgment and start standing beside them with understanding. The person you were did not need more shame. They needed safety. They needed guidance. They needed someone to say, you are not disgusting for hurting. You are not foolish for caring. You are not beyond peace because something wounded you. Shame weakens when it is met with reason, because reason restores proportion. It brings the pain back to its true size. Shame makes one moment feel like your whole life. Reason says, it was a moment. Shame makes one wound feel like your whole identity. Reason says, it was a wound. Shame makes one regret feel like a permanent sentence. Reason says, it was a lesson. Shame says, hide this forever. Reason says, you can hold this truth without letting it destroy you. And maybe you are not ready to speak your shame to another person. That is okay. This night is not asking you to expose yourself before the world. It is only asking you to stop lying to yourself in the dark. It is asking you to stop calling yourself names pain taught you to believe. It is asking you to stop confusing secrecy with protection. Because sometimes what you hide does not keep you safe. Sometimes it keeps you trapped. The Stoic practice begins quietly. You take the shameful thought and place it before the light of wisdom. You do not run. You do not collapse. You ask, what is truly mine here? You ask, what did I control? You ask, what did I not control? You ask, what would I say to someone I loved if they carried this same shame? And very often, the answer you would give another person is softer, fairer, and wiser than the answer you have been giving yourself. So tonight, offer yourself that same fairness. Let the breath slow. Let the face soften. Let the body feel that it does not have to hide from its own history. You are allowed to have painful memories and still be worthy of peace. You are allowed to have regrets and still be capable of growth. You are allowed to have been wounded and still be honorable. You are allowed to have a past and still not be owned by it. Shame may knock. Let reason answer. Shame may whisper, you are not enough. Let reason say, I am a human being in progress. Shame may whisper, you should have been perfect. Let reason say, no one heals by demanding perfection from a wounded self. Shame may whisper, this will always follow you. Let reason say, only if I keep carrying it without question. And as this meditation carries you deeper into rest, let the silence around you become a place of truth, not punishment. Let it be the silence where shame loses its throne. Let it be the silence where your mind stops hiding from itself. Let it be the silence where reason gently separates guilt from growth, pain from identity, memory from command. You do not have to drag shame into another morning. You do not have to keep protecting the lie that you are less worthy because you suffered. You do not have to stay silent in the places where your own heart needs truth. Tonight, let reason sit beside the wound. Let wisdom speak where shame used to speak. Let the hidden part of you hear this clearly. What hurt you may be real, but the shame built around it is not your master. And once shame is no longer obeyed, the soul begins to breathe again. And after you learn that shame weakens when reason enters the room, another hidden burden begins to show itself. Because sometimes the pain you carry is not only your own pain. Sometimes it is the mood, the harshness, the coldness, the anger, or the fear of people who wounded you. Their emotional tone entered your inner world so often that, without noticing, you began to carry their weather inside your own body. There are people who leave your life, but their tone stays behind. This is one of the quietest forms of mental damage. Someone may no longer be near you, they may no longer be speaking to you, they may no longer have access to your day, but their voice can still shape the way you think. Their impatience can still make you rush. Their criticism can still make you doubt yourself. Their coldness can still make you feel unworthy of warmth. Their anger can still make your body tense before anything has happened. Their disappointment can still make you feel guilty for simply existing in your own peace. And this is how the emotional tone of someone who hurt you becomes a hidden resident in the mind. You may think you have moved on because the person is gone, but then you notice something strange. You still speak to yourself the way they spoke to you. You still expect punishment when you make a mistake. You still feel nervous when you rest. You still apologize before you know what you did wrong. You still shrink around peace, as if calm is only the pause before someone becomes displeased. The Stoics would ask you to look carefully at what belongs to you and what was placed inside you by another person's disorder. Because not every voice in your mind is your own wisdom. Some voices are echoes. Some fears are inherited from old rooms. Some emotional habits are not your personality, but the residue of someone else's pain, control, neglect, or cruelty. And if you do not examine them, you may spend years obeying a tone that was never truly yours. A person who constantly criticized you may leave behind an inner critic that never sleeps. A person who made love feel unstable may leave behind a nervous system that questions every kindness. A person who punished honesty may leave behind a habit of hiding your real thoughts. A person who treated your needs like a burden may leave behind a guilt that rises every time you ask for care. The person may be absent, but the emotional atmosphere they created can still follow you like a shadow. This is why healing is not only about leaving certain people. It is also about removing their emotional climate from your inner life. You can leave the house, end the conversation, block the number, close the chapter, and still carry the tone. You can be physically free while still emotionally arranged around their old reactions. And at night, when everything becomes quiet, you may notice how much of your mind still moves, as if they are watching, judging, dismissing, or waiting to be disappointed. To stop carrying their emotional tone, you must first recognize it. Ask yourself gently, whose voice does this sound like? When you call yourself too much, whose tone is that? When you feel guilty for resting, whose expectation is that? When you fear being misunderstood, whose judgment are you still trying to avoid? When you feel ashamed for needing comfort, whose coldness taught you that need was weakness? This is not about blaming forever. It is about locating the source so you can stop confusing it with truth. The Stoic mind does not heal by pretending influence did not happen. It heals by seeing clearly and saying, "This entered me, but it does not have to rule me." That is the beginning of inner freedom. Because the emotional tone of people who hurt you can become like background music in your life. You may not notice it every moment, but it changes the way everything feels. A peaceful day can feel uneasy if their tone trained you to expect conflict. A loving gesture can feel suspicious if their tone trained you to distrust warmth. A simple mistake can feel dangerous if their tone trained you to expect punishment. A quiet evening can feel lonely if their tone trained you to believe silence means rejection. But tonight, you are allowed to change the music. You are allowed to stop letting their harshness become your inner language. You are allowed to stop using their coldness as the measure of your worth. You are allowed to stop carrying their anger in your shoulders, their criticism in your thoughts, their neglect in your chest, and their instability in your sleep. What they failed to regulate does not need to become your lifelong atmosphere. The Stoic practice begins with ownership, not ownership of what they did, but ownership of your own inner command. You may not control what tone they used. You may not control how they treated you. You may not control the years you spent adapting to their moods, but you can begin to control whether their tone remains the ruler of your inner world today. This does not happen by force. You cannot simply command the body to forget. The nervous system needs patience. It needs repeated proof. It needs you to answer the old tone with a new one. When the inner critic becomes harsh, you answer with firmness and mercy. When guilt rises for no clear reason, you answer with reason. When your body braces for rejection, you answer with breath. When old fear says, "You are about to be hurt again," you answer, "That was then. This is now." This is how you begin to replace the tone, not with empty positivity, but with steady truth. You do not say, "Nothing ever hurt me." You say, "I was hurt, but I will not keep hurting myself," in their voice. You do not say, "I am perfectly healed." You say, "I am learning to speak inwardly with more kindness than I was given." You do not say, "They had no effect on me." You say, "They had an effect, and now I am taking my inner world back." There is a deep sadness in realizing how much of your life may have been shaped by someone else's emotional temperature. Maybe you became quiet because they were easily angered. Maybe you became pleasing because they were easily disappointed. Maybe you became hyper-alert because their moods changed without warning. Maybe you became independent because their care was unreliable. Maybe you became hard on yourself because they made gentleness feel undeserved. But there is also deep power in realizing that what was learned can be relearned. The body can learn a calmer room. The mind can learn a softer voice. The heart can learn that love does not have to feel like walking carefully around another person's storm. Your peace does not have to keep adjusting itself to the emotional tone of someone who is no longer allowed to govern you. Tonight, let this truth settle gently. Their mood was not your mission. Their anger was not your identity. Their coldness was not your value. Their judgment was not your truth. Their inability to love you gently was not proof that you were difficult to love. Sometimes people give you the emotional tone they have not healed in themselves, but you do not have to become the storage place for their unfinished pain. The Stoic heart learns to return every burden to its proper owner. If their words were cruel, the cruelty belongs to them. If their presence made you small, the smallness was the effect, not your nature. If their love felt conditional, that condition belonged to their limitation, not your worth. If their silence trained you to doubt yourself, the silence was their failure to meet you, not your failure to deserve care. And now, as this night holds you, begin to notice where their tone still lives in your body. Is it in your clenched jaw? Is it in your tight chest? Is it in the way your shoulders stay lifted, as if waiting for blame? Is it in the way your stomach tightens when you think of making a mistake? Is it in the way your mind rushes to defend itself before anyone has accused you? Wherever it lives, breathe into that place gently, not to fight it, not to shame it, but to remind it that the old atmosphere is no longer the only air available. Let each exhale say, "This is not mine to carry." Let each inhale say, "I return to myself." Let the body understand that it does not have to keep rehearsing someone else's emotional storm. You can create a new inner tone, one that is firm without being cruel, gentle without being weak, honest without being punishing, calm without being numb, wise without being cold. This is the tone that brings rest back to the mind. This is the voice that allows the body to soften. This is the atmosphere where healing begins to feel possible. And if their old tone returns tonight, do not be discouraged. Echoes fade through repetition. You may have heard their voice for years. It may take time for your own voice to become stronger. But every time you answer differently, you weaken the old command. Every time you refuse to speak to yourself with their harshness, you reclaim a piece of your inner home. Every time you choose calm where they taught fear, you prove that their influence is not eternal. So let the night become a boundary. Let the silence become a doorway back to your own emotional climate. You are not in their room anymore. You are not under their mood anymore. You are not responsible for carrying the tone of people who did not know how to treat you with care. Tonight, return their anger. Return their coldness. Return their criticism. Return their fear. Return their shame. Return every emotional weight that entered you without permission. Let your mind become quiet in your own voice. Let your body rest in your own safety. Let your heart remember its original tone before pain taught it to brace. You do not have to keep sounding like what hurt you. You are allowed to become peaceful in a way their presence never allowed. And after you begin to return the emotional tone of those who hurt you, another silent weight becomes easier to notice. Because sometimes the burden is not only what others placed on you. Sometimes the burden is the role you were forced to keep playing. The calm one, the capable one, the dependable one, the one who does not fall apart, the one who carries everything quietly because everyone assumes you can handle it. There is a quiet pain in being strong when no one asks what strength is costing you. Being the strong one often looks admirable from the outside. People praise you for your patience. They trust you with their problems. They come to you when life becomes heavy. They call you wise, steady, mature, reliable. And because these words sound like honor, you may not notice the hidden trap inside them. You become known for carrying weight, so people stop wondering if the weight is too much. You become known for surviving, so people stop asking if you are tired of surviving. You become known for understanding everyone, so people forget that you also need to be understood. This kind of strength can become lonely, not because you have no people around you, but because people only know the version of you that can handle things. They know your advice, your smile, your calm voice, your ability to keep going, but they may not know the part of you that lies awake at night, empty from giving so much. They may not know the part of you that wants to be held without needing to explain why. They may not know the part of you that sometimes wishes someone else would take charge, notice the sadness and say, "You do not have to be strong with me." The quiet damage begins when strength stops being a choice and becomes a prison. There is healthy strength and there is forced strength. Healthy strength rises from wisdom. It helps you face life with courage. It teaches you to stand steady when storms come. But forced strength comes from never being allowed to collapse. It comes from childhood rooms where your feelings had no space. It comes from relationships where your pain made others uncomfortable. It comes from being needed so often that needing anything yourself began to feel unsafe. And when strength becomes a prison, you may start hiding your humanity. You may cry only when no one can hear. You may say, "I am fine," before you even check if it is true. You may comfort others while your own heart is quietly breaking. You may feel guilty for resting, guilty for asking, guilty for being tired, guilty for not having the energy to be everyone's shelter. Slowly, you become a home for other people's pain while having no safe room for your own. The Stoics valued strength, but not the kind that denies the truth. Stoic strength is not pretending you have no wound. It is looking at the wound clearly without letting it rule you. It is not carrying every burden until your soul collapses. It is knowing which burden belongs to you, which belongs to others, and which must be placed down because it was never yours to carry. A wise person is not the one who suffers endlessly in silence. A wise person is the one who learns how to suffer honestly, act rightly, and rest when rest is required. This matters because many strong people are not truly resting. They are only pausing between responsibilities. Their body lies down, but their mind keeps managing everyone. Who needs help? Who might be upset? What problem must be solved tomorrow? What emotion must be hidden so no one worries? Even in bed, the strong one is still working. Not with hands, but with attention. Not with movement, but with emotional responsibility. And this is why sleep can feel shallow, because surrender is hard when your identity has been built around control. If everyone depends on you, rest can feel irresponsible. If you were praised for endurance, softness can feel like failure. If people only valued you when you were useful, stillness can feel undeserved. But tonight, the Stoic mind must ask a clear question. Is your worth truly measured by how much pain you can carry without complaint? The answer is no. You were not created only to endure. You were not placed in this life only to be useful, available, strong, and silent. You are allowed to need care. You are allowed to be tired. You are allowed to admit that something hurt. You are allowed to have moments when you do not know the answer. You are allowed to be human without feeling like you have betrayed the image people built of you. The damage of always being the strong one is that it can teach you to abandon yourself politely. You do not explode. You do not demand. You do not make noise. You simply disappear from your own needs. You become excellent at noticing others and poor at noticing yourself. You become quick to forgive others and slow to comfort your own heart. You become skilled at making space for everyone, while shrinking the space your own pain is allowed to occupy. But your pain does not become less real because you carry it quietly. Your tiredness does not become less important because you can still function. Your loneliness does not disappear because people admire your strength. Sometimes the person who seems most stable is the one who has gone the longest without being held. Sometimes the one who gives the best comfort is the one who learned comfort by needing it and not receiving it. Sometimes the one who looks unbreakable is not unbreakable at all. They have only learned how to break in private. The Stoic practice here is not to become weak, it is to become honest, to say, I can be strong and still need rest. To say, I can care for others without carrying everyone. To say, I can be dependable without being endlessly available. To say, I can be calm without hiding my pain. This is not selfish. This is order. This is the soul returning to balance. Because strength without boundaries becomes self-abandonment. Compassion without rest becomes exhaustion. Responsibility without wisdom becomes a chain. And love without self-respect becomes a quiet way of losing yourself. Tonight, begin to release the role, not the goodness in you, not the courage, not the love, only the false belief that you must always be fine. Let your shoulders drop from the duty of appearing unshaken. Let your jaw soften from the effort of holding back words you never felt safe to say. Let your chest loosen from all the emotions you kept buried, so others would not feel burdened by you. You do not have to be the strong one in this moment. You do not have to guide anyone. You do not have to explain, fix, protect, manage, reassure, or carry. The night is not asking you to perform resilience. It is asking you to return to your own breath. And if some part of you feels afraid to put the weight down, speak to it gently. Tell it, we can rest and still be worthy. Tell it, we can stop carrying everything and still be good. Tell it, we do not lose our strength by admitting we are tired. Because true strength is not the refusal to rest. True strength is knowing when the soul has carried enough. There may be people who only recognize you when you are useful to them. Let them learn a fuller truth. There may be people who become uncomfortable when you finally have needs. Let their discomfort belong to them. There may be people who prefer the version of you that never asks for anything. Let that version retire. You are not here to be convenient at the cost of your peace. The Stoic heart understands that every role must answer to virtue, and there is no virtue in destroying yourself to maintain an image. There is no wisdom in carrying what makes you bitter. There is no honor in pretending to be whole while your inner world is begging for gentleness. The better path is quieter and braver, to care without losing yourself, to give without disappearing, to stand strong without refusing support, to rest without guilt. As this night deepens, let the strong mask loosen. Let the hidden tiredness rise without shame. Let the part of you that always says, "I can handle it," finally hear a different answer. You do not have to handle everything tonight. You have been strong through things people never saw. You have swallowed words, carried grief, supported others, stood upright in storms, and kept moving when your heart was heavy. But now, in this quiet, strength can take a new form. Not holding on, letting go, not carrying more, resting deeply, not proving you are unbreakable, allowing yourself to be human. Tonight, the quiet damage of always being the strong one begins to soften. Because you are not only the protector, you are also someone worthy of protection. You are not only the comforter, you are also someone worthy of comfort. You are not only the one who understands, you are also someone worthy of being understood. Let the night hold what you have held for too long. Let the breath carry what your words never could. Let the body rest from the role. You can be strong again tomorrow if life asks it of you. But tonight, you are allowed to be soft. And after the strong one inside you is finally allowed to soften, another hidden truth becomes easier to understand. Because even when the danger has passed, the body may not know it yet. The mind may say, "It is over." The calendar may say, "That season is gone." The people may have left. The place may have changed. The chapter may be closed. But somewhere deep inside, your nervous system may still be standing guard at the door of an old battlefield. Sometimes the war ends before the body receives the message. This is why peace can feel strange after years of pain. You may be in a quiet room, but your shoulders stay lifted. You may be with someone kind, but your chest still waits for disappointment. You may have nothing urgent to solve, but your thoughts keep searching for danger. You may be tired, safe and alone, yet your body refuses to fully rest. Not because you are choosing fear, not because you are weak, but because the part of you designed to protect you learned its lessons during a time when calm could not be trusted. The nervous system does not speak in words, it speaks in signals: tightness, restlessness, sudden heaviness, a fast heartbeat, a clenched jaw, a stomach that turns when nothing is visibly wrong, the urge to check, prepare, explain, defend, control, or withdraw. These are not random. They are old alarms. They are the body saying, "Something like this once hurt us, be ready." But the problem is that the alarm may still ring long after the danger has left. This is one of the reasons sleep becomes difficult for wounded people. Sleep requires trust. To sleep deeply, the body must believe it can stop guarding. It must believe the night is not a threat. It must believe that no sudden pain is coming. But if your past trained you to stay alert, rest can feel unsafe. The bed may be soft, the room may be quiet, the lights may be low, but inside, the body may still be listening for footsteps that no longer come. The Stoics understood that peace begins with seeing things as they truly are, not as fear remembers them. Fear says, "This calm will not last." Reason asks, what is happening right now? Fear says, something bad is coming. Reason asks, is danger here or is memory speaking? Fear says, do not relax. Wisdom answers, there is no virtue in bracing against shadows. This does not mean you shame the body for being afraid. That would only create another war inside you. The body is not your enemy. It has been trying to protect you in the only way it knew. Maybe it learned to stay tense because life once changed without warning. Maybe it learned to expect criticism because someone's mood controlled the room. Maybe it learned to scan faces because love was unstable. Maybe it learned to stay awake because night used to be the place where thoughts became too loud. Maybe it learned to expect rejection because disappointment came too often. So tonight, instead of attacking the fear, thank it gently. Say within yourself, I see what you are trying to do. You are trying to keep me safe. There is power in this, because what is understood does not need to shout as loudly. What is met with patience begins to soften. Your nervous system does not heal through force. It heals through repeated experiences of safety. It heals when the body learns again and again, we are here now. That danger is gone. This moment is different. But this learning takes time. You cannot rush a body that spent years surviving. You cannot command the heart to trust in one night. You cannot punish yourself into calm. The Stoic way is not violent control. It is steady training. It is the discipline of returning, breath by breath, to what is real. The past may rise, but you return to the present. The alarm may sound, but you look around and notice, I am not there anymore. The body may brace, but you soften one small place. Maybe tonight that place is your jaw. Let it loosen. Maybe it is your hands. Let them open. Maybe it is your shoulders. Let them drop. Maybe it is your stomach. Let it stop holding the whole history of what went wrong. You do not have to relax everything at once. Even one small release teaches the body a new truth. A nervous system defending against a gone danger often mistakes stillness for risk. This is why some people feel uncomfortable when life becomes quiet. They say they want peace, but when peace arrives, they feel uneasy. They start looking for a problem. They create tasks. They check messages. They replay memories. They search for what might go wrong. Not because peace is bad, but because peace is unfamiliar. And what is unfamiliar can feel unsafe to a body trained by chaos. But unfamiliar does not mean dangerous. Calm may feel strange simply because you have not lived there long enough. Safety may feel boring because your body is used to intensity. Rest may feel wrong because you were praised for endurance. Love may feel suspicious because your heart learned that warmth could disappear. But tonight, you do not have to confuse the old training with the truth of this moment. This is where you begin to speak to the body in the language it understands. Not long explanations, not arguments, not pressure, just breath, warmth, stillness, gentle repetition. The body learns through experience. So let it experience one quiet moment without punishment, one breath without defense, 1 minute where nothing is demanded, one silence that does not mean rejection, one night where you are not required to keep watch. The mind may try to help by reviewing every danger. It may say, we must stay ready. But readiness becomes suffering when there is nothing to fight. A soldier cannot sleep if he believes the war is still outside the door, and many hearts have lived this way for years, resting with one eye open, loving with one hand near the exit, speaking with the fear of being misunderstood, moving through life as if peace must be protected from a threat that is already gone. The Stoic practice is to return control to where it belongs. You cannot control everything that may happen tomorrow. You cannot control every person's mood. You cannot control every future loss, but you can control how you meet this breath. You can control whether you keep feeding the old alarm with fearful stories. You can control whether you treat the present as guilty until proven safe. You can control whether you answer the body's fear with cruelty or with calm leadership. Tonight, become a calm leader within yourself, not a harsh ruler, not an impatient judge, a steady guide. When fear rises, do not say, "Stop being afraid." Say, "I understand, but look, we are safe enough right now." When tension returns, do not say, "What is wrong with me?" Say, "This is an old defense. It can soften slowly." When the mind scans for danger, do not follow it into every possible future. Return to the weight of your body. Return to the sound of your breathing. Return to this room, this bed, this night. There is a sacred difference between protection and imprisonment. Protection helps you respond to real danger. Imprisonment makes you live as if danger is everywhere. Protection listens to wisdom. Imprisonment listens only to fear. Protection helps you choose. Imprisonment makes every quiet moment feel suspicious. And tonight, your body is being invited out of the prison of old alarms. You do not have to prove to your nervous system that life will never hurt again. That is not possible. The Stoic does not seek a life without difficulty. The Stoic seeks a mind that can meet difficulty without being ruled by panic. So the goal is not to convince yourself that nothing will ever go wrong. The goal is to teach the body that it does not need to suffer before trouble arrives. It does not need to rehearse danger in order to be wise. It does not need to stay tense to deserve safety. Let the old guard inside you lower the weapon. Let the watcher at the gate sit down. Let the alarm grow quiet. Let the body understand that vigilance is not the same as peace. You have been defended long enough by fear. Now you can be guided by wisdom. As this night deepens, breathe as though you are sending a message to every guarded part of you. The danger is not here now. The past is not standing in the room. The old voice is not in control. The old pain is not happening again. You are allowed to rest before every problem is solved. You are allowed to soften before life becomes perfect. You are allowed to sleep without earning safety through exhaustion. Your nervous system may still be defending you from a danger that is gone, but tonight, gently, patiently, breath by breath, it can begin to learn a new truth. You survived the danger. You left the old battlefield. You are here now, and here you are allowed to rest. And after the nervous system begins to understand that the old danger is no longer here, another painful habit rises to the surface. Because even when the body starts to rest, the mind may still keep walking backward. It may return to the old scene again and again, not only to remember it, but to bargain with it, to beg it, to plead with it, to ask the past to become kinder than it was. There is a deep tiredness in asking yesterday to give you a different ending. This is one of the quietest ways the mind keeps itself in pain. It does not always say, "I refuse to accept what happened." Sometimes it sounds softer. It says, "If only I had done this. If only they had listened. If only I had known sooner. If only the ending had been different. If only that person had cared enough to change." And while these thoughts may feel natural, they can slowly become chains, because every "if only" pulls your energy out of the present and sends it back into a place where nothing can be altered. The past becomes heavier when the mind keeps negotiating with it. You may lie in bed replaying the last conversation, the missed chance, the final message, the betrayal, the silence, the loss, the moment everything shifted. You may create 10 different versions of what should have happened, one where they apologized, one where you spoke perfectly, one where they stayed, one where they understood, one where you were stronger, wiser, calmer, faster, or less trusting. But no matter how many versions the mind creates, the body remains tired because none of them are real. Stoic acceptance begins with a hard but freeing truth. What happened has already happened. This does not mean it was fair. It does not mean it was good. It does not mean you deserved it. It does not mean you must smile at it or call it a blessing before your heart is ready. Acceptance simply means you stop spending your life fighting a fact that cannot be rewritten. The Stoics were not interested in pretending pain does not exist. They were interested in placing pain where it belongs. The past belongs behind you. The lesson may come forward, but the event itself cannot. The wisdom can travel with you, but the old scene cannot be changed by suffering over it again tonight. And this is where peace begins to return. Not when the past finally becomes what you wanted, but when you stop demanding that it change before you allow yourself to rest. There is a difference between grieving the past and begging the past. Grieving says, "That hurt me." Begging says, "Please become something else." Grieving allows the heart to feel what was lost. Begging keeps the heart trapped at the door of something that will never open differently. Grieving is honest. Begging is exhausting. Grieving can soften you. Begging can keep you awake for years. Many people confuse acceptance with giving up. But acceptance is not surrendering your worth. It is surrendering the illusion that replaying the pain will make it obey you. You are not giving up on healing. You are giving up on the impossible task of forcing yesterday to become gentle. You are not saying what happened was acceptable. You are saying, "I will no longer let what happened keep taking from the life I still have." This is where Stoicism becomes deeply practical. It asks one clear question: what is still within your control now? Not then, not in the old room, not in the conversation that already ended, not in the choice someone else refused to make. Now, in this breath, in this night, in this body, in this moment. You cannot control the apology that never came, but you can control whether you keep waiting at the altar of someone else's maturity. You cannot control the years that passed, but you can control whether you give the next year to the same wound. You cannot control the ending you received, but you can control whether you turn that ending into the end of yourself. The mind begs the past because it wants relief. It believes that if the story finally makes sense, the pain will stop. But some stories never make full sense. Some people never explain their cruelty. Some endings never become fair. Some losses never receive a clean answer. Some doors close without giving the dignity of understanding. And if your peace depends on perfect explanation, your peace remains in the hands of what hurt you. Stoic acceptance takes your peace back from unanswered questions. It says, "I may never understand everything, but I can still live with wisdom." It says, "I may never receive what I needed from them, but I can stop abandoning myself while waiting." It says, "I may never like what happened, but I can stop arguing with its existence." This is not coldness. This is mercy. Mercy toward your own tired mind. At night, the mind often returns to the past because silence feels like space for unfinished things. But not everything unfinished needs to be solved before sleep. Some things simply need to be placed down for now. You can say, "This pain is real, but it will not be investigated tonight." You can say, "This ending hurt, but I do not need to rewrite it before I rest." You can say, "I wanted it to be different, and I release the demand that it should have been." That sentence may hurt at first, because part of you still wants justice from the past. Part of you still wants the person to finally see what they did. Part of you still wants the younger version of yourself to be rescued from that moment. But acceptance does not abandon that younger self. Acceptance finally stops dragging them back through the same scene in the name of healing. Acceptance says, "You went through enough. I will not keep making you relive it just because I wish it had ended differently." This is a quiet act of love. Because every time you beg the past, you ask your present self to pay for something that cannot change. You spend your breath on closed doors. You spend your sleep on old endings. You spend your attention on people who may not even be thinking of the pain they left behind. And slowly, without meaning to, you keep making your life smaller around a moment that already took too much. The Stoic way is to allow the fact to be a fact, then choose your response with dignity. They left. That is the fact. You choose not to leave yourself. They misunderstood you. That is the fact. You choose not to spend your whole life begging to be seen by closed eyes. You failed then. That is the fact. You choose to learn without becoming your own enemy. You were hurt. That is the fact. You choose to heal without needing the wound to become beautiful. Acceptance is not instant. It is practiced. Some nights you may accept the past for one breath, then fight it again the next. That is still practice. Some memories may return with force. Some regrets may try to sound convincing. Some wishes may rise and say, "But it should have been different," and maybe it should have. Maybe you deserved better. Maybe the ending was unfair. Maybe the silence was cruel. Maybe the loss was heavier than anyone knew. Acceptance does not erase that truth. It simply adds another truth. Even if it should have been different, it is not different. And you are still here. You are still here with a life that needs your attention, a body that needs rest, a mind that needs mercy, a future that should not be starved because the past refused to feed you properly. You are still here with the power to stop pouring today's energy into yesterday's locked room. So tonight, let the old bargaining soften. Let the if-only thoughts lose their command. Let the mind stop kneeling before the past as if the past is a judge deciding whether you can be free. You do not need permission from what happened to move forward. You do not need the ending to become fair before your breathing can slow. You do not need the people involved to become wise before you reclaim your peace. Breathe in and return to now. Breathe out and release the ending you cannot rewrite. Breathe in and remember that your life is still happening. Breathe out and stop asking the past to become a different story before you rest. The past may remain what it was, but you do not have to remain who you were inside it. The ending may not change, but your relationship with that ending can. The memory may still exist, but the begging can stop. The old pain may still have a place in your history, but it does not have to sit on the throne of your night. Tonight, Stoic acceptance does not ask you to love what happened. It asks you to stop bleeding your present into what cannot be changed. It asks you to gather your attention from yesterday's locked doors and bring it back to the quiet room where your body is waiting for peace. It asks you to say with a tired but honest heart, "That was the ending. I wanted another, but I will not lose myself begging for it anymore." And as those words settle inside you, something begins to loosen, not the memory perhaps, not all at once, but the fight, the argument, the demand, the old war against what already is. Let it loosen. Let the past be past. Let the breath be present. Let the night become a place where you stop pleading with yesterday and finally return to yourself. And after the mind stops begging the past for a different ending, another part of the night becomes clear. Because sometimes the memory itself has not grown larger. Sometimes the world around it has only become quieter. The noise fades, the duties pause, the phone is placed down, the room goes still, and suddenly, what was buried under the movement of the day begins to feel close again. Pain can sound louder when silence removes everything that was covering it. This is why painful memories often feel bigger at night, not because you are weaker in the dark, Not because you are failing at healing, not because the pain has returned to destroy your peace, but because the night removes distraction. During the day, the mind has places to run. There are tasks to complete, people to answer, meals to prepare, problems to solve, steps to take, sounds to follow, and roles to perform. Even if the pain is still there, it may be hidden under the weight of activity. But when night comes, activity falls away. The mind no longer has the same places to hide. The body slows down, but the inner world begins to speak. Old memories rise because there is finally space. The grief that waited behind your busyness comes forward. The regret that could not compete with daytime noise becomes louder. The fear that sat quietly behind your strength begins to knock. The wound that seemed manageable in the afternoon may feel enormous under the stillness of midnight. This can frighten people. They think, why does it hurt more now? Why am I thinking about this again? Why does everything feel heavier at night? But the truth is simple. The night does not always create pain. Sometimes it only reveals what the day helped you avoid. The darkness becomes a mirror, not an enemy. It shows what has been asking for attention beneath the surface. The Stoics would tell you to be careful with appearances. A thought at night can feel more powerful than it truly is because the mind is tired and the world is quiet. A memory can seem like a mountain because there is nothing else beside it. A worry can seem like truth because your body has less energy to question it. But feeling big does not mean being absolute. A painful memory can fill the room and still not be the whole of reality. This is where wisdom must enter gently. You do not need to panic because a memory feels large. You do not need to believe every thought that becomes loud at night. You do not need to follow every feeling into a story about your future. The night may make the memory feel bigger, but it does not make the memory more powerful than your awareness. Think of a shadow on a wall. When the light is low, even a small object can cast a large shape. The shadow may look frightening, but it is not the same as the object itself. Painful memories work this way in the quiet. The less distraction around them, the larger their shadow becomes. But the shadow is not the whole truth. It is the mind's tired projection. It is the old pain stretched across the silence. This is why you must not make permanent conclusions at night. Do not decide your worth at midnight. Do not judge your whole life when your body is exhausted. Do not measure your future while the mind is standing inside an old wound. Night thoughts can be honest, but they can also be distorted by fatigue, loneliness, and silence. A Stoic mind learns to say, "This feels large now, but I will not call it final." Painful memories become bigger at night because the mind often uses stillness as an invitation to review unfinished pain. It brings back scenes it could not process during the day. The conversation that hurt you, the person who left, the mistake you still regret, the moment you felt small, the silence that wounded you, the disappointment you never named. These memories rise not because you are doomed to suffer, but because your inner world is trying to make sense of what still feels unresolved. But there is a difference between witnessing a memory and feeding it. Witnessing says, "This is here." Feeding says, "Let me give this memory all my fear, all my energy, all my night, and all my belief." Witnessing creates space. Feeding creates a storm. The Stoic practice is to let the memory be seen without letting it become king. When a painful memory feels bigger at night, slow down the meaning you attach to it. Do not say, "This means I am not healed." Say, "This means my mind is quiet enough to notice what is still tender." Do not say, "This pain will never leave." Say, "This pain is visiting strongly tonight." Do not say, "I am back where I started." Say, "I am meeting another layer." This change in language matters because it turns fear into observation. The mind suffers more when it treats every night feeling as a prophecy. A memory rises and the mind says, "This will always be with me." A sadness appears and the mind says, "I will never be free." A regret returns and the mind says, "My life is ruined." But these are not facts. They are tired conclusions spoken from inside a passing wave. The Stoic does not build a life philosophy from one wave. The Stoic watches the wave, breathes through it, and waits for the sea to settle. This is not avoidance. It is discipline. There are times to reflect deeply. There are times to journal, speak, understand, repair, and make choices. But night is often not the best time to solve the whole history of your heart. Night is for softening. Night is for releasing the demand to understand everything. Night is for telling the nervous system, we do not need to hold court right now. We do not need to reopen every case. We do not need to fix the past before we are allowed to rest. Painful memories also feel bigger at night because the body is tired. A tired body has fewer defenses against emotional waves. During the day, strength may cover the ache, but exhaustion removes the mask. This does not mean you are weak. It means you are human. Even the strongest mind becomes more sensitive when the body is asking for sleep. Hunger, fatigue, loneliness, and darkness can make old pain feel sharper. The wise response is not self-criticism. The wise response is care. So tonight, when the memory grows large, do not attack yourself for feeling it. Lower the battle, soften the breath. Let your body receive the care the memory is asking for. Place one hand gently where the tension lives, if that feels natural. Let the jaw unclench. Let the shoulders fall. Let the eyes rest. Tell yourself, this memory feels bigger because the night is quiet, but I am still here. I am still safe in this moment. I do not have to enter the old scene. The Stoics taught that the present moment is where your power lives, and this matters deeply at night. The memory belongs to then. The body belongs to now. The regret belongs to then. The breath belongs to now. The loss belongs to then. The bed beneath you belongs to now. The silence around you is not the silence of the old wound. It is the silence of this room, this night, this chance to rest. Bring the mind back to what is real and immediate, the weight of the body, the rhythm of the breath, the softness of the dark, the fact that no action is required from you in this moment. You do not have to answer the memory. You do not have to explain the pain. You do not have to prove that what hurt you mattered. You do not have to build a defense against the past. You only have to return. Return once, then again, then again. This is how the memory becomes smaller, not by force, but by refusing to feed it with fear. Each time you return to the present, the old image loses a little of its command. Each time you breathe instead of replaying, the body learns that stillness does not have to become suffering. Each time you rest without solving everything, the mind learns that peace does not depend on perfect answers. There may still be nights when memories rise. There may still be moments when pain feels larger than it did during the day. But now you understand why. The night removes distraction, and what remains asks to be held differently. Not worshipped, not feared, not obeyed. Held with reason, held with breath. Held with the steady knowledge that a memory can become loud without becoming law. So let the quiet no longer frighten you. Let it become a place where hidden pain loses its disguise. Let the darkness no longer mean danger. Let it mean space. Space to notice, space to soften, space to return to what is still alive inside you beyond the memory. Tonight, if the past feels bigger, remember this. It is not bigger than your awareness. It is not bigger than your ability to breathe through it. It is not bigger than the present moment waiting beneath it. The night may remove distraction, but it can also remove illusion. And when illusion falls away, you can finally see that the memory is only a visitor. You are the home. And tonight, the home can rest. And after you understand why painful memories feel bigger when the night removes distraction, another hidden burden begins to reveal itself. Because sometimes the pain is not only in what others did to you. Sometimes the pain is in what you did to yourself afterward, in the name of peace. You forgave them, but you kept betraying your own heart. You released their guilt, but you kept carrying the wound alone. You said, "It is okay," while something inside you quietly whispered, "But I am not okay yet." There is a kind of forgiveness that looks holy on the outside, but feels like self-abandonment on the inside. Many people are taught to forgive quickly. Forgive so you can move on. Forgive so you can be mature. Forgive so you do not become bitter. Forgive because holding anger is heavy. And there is truth in this. Forgiveness can be powerful. It can free the mind from the poison of endless resentment. It can stop the past from controlling your emotional life. It can return your energy to your own hands. But forgiveness becomes dangerous when it is used to silence your pain before your pain has been heard. It becomes another form of self-neglect when you forgive someone only because you are afraid to admit how deeply they hurt you. It becomes a mask when you say you have let go, but your body still tightens at the memory. It becomes a prison when you release them from responsibility while still blaming yourself for being affected. This is the hidden cost. You may forgive the person, but abandon the part of you that needed protection. You may excuse their behavior, but leave your own wound untreated. You may tell yourself, "They did their best," while ignoring the truth that their best still harmed you. You may say, "I understand why they were like that," while never asking why you had to suffer so quietly because of it. The Stoics did not teach forgiveness as weakness. They did not teach peace as pretending. They taught clear judgment. They taught that you must see things as they are, not as fear wants them to be, not as guilt wants them to be, not as others pressure you to describe them. So if something hurt you, wisdom begins by admitting it hurt. If someone crossed a boundary, reason begins by naming the boundary. If someone broke trust, peace does not come from calling betrayal harmless. Peace comes from seeing the truth without letting hatred become your master. Forgiveness without self-honor is incomplete. It may calm the surface, but underneath, the soul remains unsettled. Because the wounded part of you does not only need you to stop being angry at the person who hurt you, it needs to know you will not keep choosing their comfort over your truth. It needs to know you will not keep making excuses for behavior that damaged your peace. It needs to know that forgiveness does not mean giving people permission to wound you again. Many people abandon themselves in forgiveness because they fear being called unforgiving, difficult, bitter, or dramatic. So they rush. They smile too soon. They return too quickly. They lower their standards before the wound has even closed. They allow access where there has been no change. They confuse compassion with surrender. They confuse understanding someone's pain with accepting their harmful behavior. They confuse peace with silence. But silence is not always peace. Sometimes silence is the sound of a person disappearing from themselves. You can forgive someone and still tell the truth about what happened. You can forgive someone and still keep distance. You can forgive someone and still say, "That cannot happen again." You can forgive someone and still admit that trust has changed. You can forgive someone and still refuse to carry the emotional consequences of their choices. Forgiveness does not require you to erase your own reality to make someone else feel innocent. The Stoic way is to return each thing to its proper place. Their action belongs to them. Your healing belongs to you. Their reason may explain, but it does not erase. Your compassion may soften anger, but it must not destroy discernment. Their apology, if it comes, may open a door, but your wisdom decides whether that door should be entered again. This is important because some people want forgiveness without transformation. They want your softness without accountability. They want access without repair. They want the old version of you who understood everything, tolerated everything, and called it love. But true peace does not come from letting people return to the same place in your life without evidence of change. That is not forgiveness. That is self-betrayal wearing gentle clothes. At night, the hidden cost of this becomes louder. You may not feel anger anymore, but you feel tired. You may not want revenge, but you feel empty. You may not think about them every day, but your body still remembers the times you betrayed yourself to keep peace. This is because the deepest wound may not be only that they hurt you. It may be that you did not protect yourself afterward. You stayed quiet when your heart needed a voice. You minimized the damage when your body needed truth. You comforted their guilt while ignoring your own grief. And tonight, the mind is being invited into a more honest kind of forgiveness. A forgiveness that does not abandon the self. A forgiveness that says, I release the desire to be controlled by this pain, but I do not deny that it was pain. A forgiveness that says, I will not live in hatred, but I will also not live in self-disrespect. A forgiveness that says, I can wish you growth from a distance, while choosing safety for myself up close. This kind of forgiveness is quieter, stronger and cleaner. It does not need applause. It does not need to prove how mature it is. It does not rush back into the same fire to show it has no bitterness. It stands still and says, my peace matters too. Maybe someone hurt you because they were wounded. Maybe they did not know better. Maybe they acted from fear, ignorance, immaturity, or their own unhealed past. You can understand that and still say, I was harmed. You can have compassion for their story without making your own story disappear. You can see their humanity without sacrificing your dignity. The Stoic heart is not hard, it is ordered. It knows that mercy without wisdom becomes weakness. It knows that kindness without boundaries becomes exhaustion. It knows that forgiveness without self-respect becomes another wound. And so it chooses a balanced path. No hatred, no denial, no revenge, no self-abandonment. Tonight, ask yourself gently, where have I called it forgiveness when it was actually fear? Where have I said, I am over it, when I was only tired of explaining? Where have I protected another person's image more than my own heart? Where have I allowed someone back into my peace without asking whether my peace was safe with them? Do not ask these questions to punish yourself. Ask them to return to yourself, because the part of you that forgave too quickly was likely trying to survive. It may have wanted harmony. It may have feared conflict. It may have believed that love meant understanding everything. It may have been trained to keep the peace, even when peace cost too much. Do not hate that version of you. Hold it gently. It was doing what it knew. But now wisdom is asking for something deeper. You can forgive and still choose yourself. You can release anger and still keep boundaries. You can let go of revenge and still refuse access. You can understand the person and still honor the wound. You can be peaceful without becoming available to pain again. As this night deepens, let your body feel the difference. Let your shoulders drop from the pressure to excuse everything. Let your chest soften from the burden of carrying someone else's guilt. Let your jaw unclench from all the words you swallowed to keep others comfortable. Let your breath remind you that your inner world is not a place where everyone gets to leave their damage and walk away. You are allowed to stand beside yourself now. You are allowed to say, that hurt me. You are allowed to say, I forgive, but I remember the lesson. You are allowed to say, I release the weight, but I do not reopen the door. This is not bitterness. This is wisdom with a backbone. This is peace that has learned self-respect. This is forgiveness cleansed of self-abandonment. Tonight, you do not have to keep choosing between a soft heart and a protected soul. You can have both. You can forgive without disappearing. You can be kind without betraying yourself. You can release the past without handing your future back to the people who harmed your peace. Let the old guilt fade. Let the false duty fall away. Let the wounded part of you finally trust that you will not leave it alone again just to prove you are good. Forgive if your heart is ready, but this time, do not abandon yourself in the process. And after you learn that forgiveness must never become self-abandonment, another quiet confusion begins to reveal itself, because sometimes, after carrying too much for too long, the heart stops feeling loudly. The tears do not come. The anger becomes distant. The pain feels far away. And because the storm is no longer moving on the surface, you may begin to call it peace. But not every silence inside you is peace. Sometimes it is numbness. Emotional numbness can feel like relief at first. After years of overthinking, hurting, defending, hoping, grieving, and trying to understand, there comes a point where the heart may simply stop reaching. You may stop reacting, stop expecting, stop crying, stop explaining, stop caring in the way you used to. And because this feels calmer than pain, the mind may say, maybe I am healed now. But healing and numbness are not the same thing. Peace is alive. Numbness is shut down. Peace feels open, even when it is quiet. Numbness feels closed, even when it looks calm. Peace allows you to feel without being controlled. Numbness avoids feeling because the body no longer trusts emotion. Peace is the result of wisdom. Numbness is often the result of exhaustion. This difference matters deeply because many wounded people mistake emotional shutdown for strength. They say, I do not care anymore, but what they really mean is, I cared so much that something in me had to turn off. They say, nothing affects me now, but what they really mean is, I am afraid that if I feel again, I will be overwhelmed. They say, I am at peace, but the peace has no softness, no breath, no warmth, no freedom. It is only a wall without noise. The Stoics did not teach numbness. They taught inner command. There is a great difference between not being ruled by emotion and not feeling emotion at all. Stoicism is not becoming stone. It is becoming steady. It is not killing the heart. It is training the mind to guide the heart with reason. A Stoic can feel grief without drowning in it, feel anger without becoming cruel, feel disappointment without losing dignity, feel fear without obeying every alarm. That is peace. Not the absence of feeling, but the presence of order. Numbness often begins as protection. When pain becomes too much, the body may reduce feeling so you can keep functioning. This is not weakness. It is survival. If you were overwhelmed for too long, your system may have learned to go quiet. If your emotions were ignored, mocked, punished, or used against you, numbness may have become the safest room available. If every feeling led to conflict, rejection, or shame, then feeling less may have seemed like wisdom. But what protects you from pain can also block you from joy. That is the hidden cost. Emotional numbness does not only silence sadness, it can also silence wonder, love, gratitude, tenderness, excitement, and deep connection. You may stop hurting sharply, but you may also stop feeling fully alive. The same wall that keeps grief out may keep beauty out. The same distance that protects you from disappointment may protect you from closeness. The same detachment that keeps you from breaking may also keep you from being touched by life. This is why numbness can become so confusing. On the outside, you may seem stable. You may no longer react strongly. You may handle things without visible emotion. People may even praise you for being calm. But inside, there may be a quiet emptiness, a sense that life is happening around you, but not reaching you. A sense that you are present, but not fully here. A sense that you are safe, but not free. Peace does not make you disappear from yourself. Peace brings you home. To stop mistaking numbness for peace, you must learn to ask gentle questions, not harsh questions, not questions that accuse you, but questions that help you listen. Do I feel calm, or do I feel disconnected? Do I feel free, or do I feel shut down? Can I still feel warmth, or am I only avoiding pain? Is my silence restful, or is it heavy? Am I choosing stillness, or has something inside me stopped believing it is safe to feel? These questions begin to separate true rest from emotional absence, because peace has a certain softness to it. Even when it is quiet, it carries life. It allows breath to deepen. It allows the body to settle. It allows the heart to remain open without being desperate. Numbness, on the other hand, often feels flat. It may have no storm, but it also has no sunrise. It may have no crying, but it also has no real relief. The Stoic way forward is not to force yourself to feel everything at once. That would be unwise. A heart that has gone numb often needs patience, not pressure. You do not break the wall down with violence. You open a small window. You let one honest feeling breathe. You allow one soft truth to rise. You begin with the body, because the body often knows before the mind does. Maybe you notice tightness in the chest. Maybe heaviness behind the eyes. Maybe a dull ache in the stomach. Maybe tiredness that has no clear reason. Instead of ignoring it, you place kind attention there. You do not demand a story. You do not force tears. You simply say, "Something in me has been quiet for a long time. I am listening now." That listening is the beginning of return. Numbness weakens when the inner world feels safe enough to speak again. Not rushed, not judged, not mocked, not dismissed. Safe. That is why this night matters. In this quiet, you do not have to perform calm. You do not have to pretend to be healed. You do not have to call emptiness peace just because it hurts less than pain. You are allowed to admit, "I have not been peaceful. I have been tired. I have been distant. I have been protecting myself from feeling too much." There is no shame in that admission. It is a doorway. Because once you can tell the difference, you can begin to choose true peace. True peace does not require you to feel nothing. It allows you to feel without fear of being destroyed. True peace does not erase the past. It places the past in proper order. True peace does not make you cold. It makes you clear. It lets the heart stay tender without becoming helpless. It lets the mind stay steady without becoming cruel. And maybe you have been afraid of feeling because feeling once cost you too much. Maybe every emotion used to lead to more pain. Maybe love led to disappointment. Hope led to loss. Trust led to betrayal. Honesty led to shame. So your body learned, do not feel deeply. Deep feeling is dangerous. But tonight, you can teach it something new. You can say, we do not have to open everything at once. We only need to soften one layer. Let your breath soften one layer. Let your shoulders drop one layer. Let your jaw unclench one layer. Let your heart admit one small truth. You do not need to become overwhelmed to be alive again. You do not need to return to chaos to prove you can feel. You do not need to reopen every wound in one night. You only need to stop calling numbness peace when your soul is asking for something warmer. The Stoic does not chase emotion. The Stoic also does not bury it. The Stoic observes, understands, orders, and releases. Emotion becomes a messenger, not a master. Pain becomes something to witness, not something to worship. Calm becomes a living place, not a frozen one. So tonight, if you feel nothing, do not panic. Do not shame yourself. Do not say, "What is wrong with me?" Say instead, "Something in me learned to go quiet. I will not punish it for protecting me." Then gently invite yourself back. Back to breath, back to body, back to truth, back to the possibility that peace can be soft, not empty. You are allowed to feel again slowly. You are allowed to rest without shutting down. You are allowed to be calm without being numb. You are allowed to be protected without being closed. And as this night deepens, let the false peace fall away. Let the cold silence lose its disguise. Let the part of you that has been frozen for survival begin to sense the warmth of real safety. True peace is not the place where you feel nothing. True peace is the place where you no longer fear what you feel. Tonight, may your heart begin to thaw without rushing. May your mind become steady without becoming hard. May your body learn that feeling does not mean danger. And may you finally stop mistaking emptiness for rest, when what your soul has wanted all along is a peace that is alive. And after you learn to stop mistaking numbness for peace, another tender truth begins to open. Because when the heart finally feels safe enough to thaw, the mind may start returning to old places, not because it wants to hurt you again, not because you are moving backward, not because you are weak, but because some parts of your pain were never processed when they happened. They were only survived. Some memories come back because they are still waiting for safety. When something painful happens too quickly, too heavily, or too unexpectedly, the mind may not have time to understand it. The body reacts first. It protects. It freezes. It runs. It hides. It stays quiet. It holds everything together because there is no room to fall apart. In that moment, survival becomes more important than understanding. You do not ask, "What does this mean?" You ask, even without words, "How do I get through this?" And sometimes you do get through it. You continue. You wake up the next day. You answer people. You work. You smile. You take care of responsibilities. You become functional again. But just because life moves forward does not mean the pain was fully processed. Some experiences remain inside the body like unopened letters. They were received, but never read. They were carried, but never answered. They were stored in the quiet rooms of the mind because at the time you did not have enough safety, support, time, language, or strength to face them completely. This is why the mind keeps returning. It is not always trying to punish you. Sometimes it is trying to finish what could not be finished before. It brings back the memory because something inside still wants understanding, still wants comfort, still wants truth, still wants a safe witness, still wants to say, "This hurt me," without being rushed, judged, blamed, or ignored. But the return can feel frightening. A memory rises, and you may think, "Why is this still here? I thought I moved on. I thought I was stronger now. I thought this was over." Yet healing is not always a straight road away from pain. Sometimes healing brings you back to the same place, but with more wisdom, more breath, more distance, and more inner safety than you had before. The memory may be the same, but you are not the same person meeting it. The Stoics understood that the mind needs order. When an experience is not understood, it remains disorderly inside. It becomes fear without a clear name, sadness without a proper place, anger without a safe expression, grief without a witness, shame without reason. And whatever remains unordered inside the soul will often return, not to destroy you, but to ask for placement. The mistake many people make is that they treat every returning memory as a threat. They push it away. They shame themselves. They say, "I should not think about this." But the mind does not become peaceful because you force it into silence. It becomes peaceful when what is inside is met with enough honesty to settle. A memory that was never processed does not need panic. It needs presence. It needs the calm inner voice that says, "I can see you now. I could not hold you then, but I can hold you more gently tonight." There are things you may not have been safe enough to feel when they happened. Maybe you could not feel the grief because others needed you to be strong. Maybe you could not feel the anger because anger would have made the situation more dangerous. Maybe you could not feel the disappointment because admitting it would have broken the image you needed to survive. Maybe you could not feel the fear because you had to keep moving. Maybe you could not feel the loneliness because there was no one there to comfort you. So the feeling waited. It waited beneath your routines, beneath your strength, beneath your achievements, beneath your silence, beneath your "I am fine." And now, when the night becomes quiet, it rises again, not because it wants to ruin your rest, but because rest is the first place where the body thinks, "Maybe it is safe enough now." This is a difficult truth. Sometimes pain returns not because you are unsafe, but because you are finally becoming safe enough to feel what you could not feel before. The mind may bring old memories to the surface because your inner world is no longer as defended as it once was. The heart may begin to speak because it trusts you a little more. The body may release what it stored because it senses that you are no longer living inside the same danger. The Stoic response is not to drown in the memory. It is to meet it with reason and compassion. Reason says, "This is a memory, not the present." Compassion says, "But it mattered." Reason says, "I do not need to obey every feeling." Compassion says, "But I will not shame myself for having it." Reason says, "The danger has passed." Compassion says, "The part of me that still trembles deserves patience." This balance is powerful. If you use only reason, you may become cold toward yourself. If you use only emotion, you may be swept away by the old pain. But when reason and compassion sit together, the memory begins to soften. It no longer needs to scream for attention. It no longer needs to return every night with the same force. It begins to understand that it has finally been noticed. Processing does not always mean explaining everything perfectly. Some pain will never have a perfect explanation. Some people will never make sense. Some endings will never become fair. Some losses will never feel acceptable. Processing means the pain is no longer trapped in confusion. It means the body understands. That happened then, and I am here now. It means the mind can hold the memory without becoming the memory. It means the heart can grieve without being swallowed whole. This is why safety matters. You cannot force deep healing in a mind that still feels attacked. You cannot bully your nervous system into release. You cannot shame yourself into peace. The parts of you that carry old pain need calm conditions. They need slow breathing. They need gentleness. They need the repeated message that you are not back there anymore. They need to know that if a feeling rises, you will not abandon yourself, mock yourself, or rush yourself away from it. Tonight, give yourself that safety. Let the bed beneath you become a reminder that you are supported now. Let the darkness around you become a shelter, not a threat. Let your breath become the steady hand you once needed. You do not have to process your whole past tonight. You do not have to open every locked room. You do not have to understand every detail of why the pain stayed. You only need to meet this moment with less fear than before. When the mind returns to what it could not process, answer it softly. I know why you came back. You were never fully heard. You were never fully held. You were never given the safety to become a memory instead of an open wound. These words are not weakness, they are order. They are the soul finally giving language to what remained unfinished. And then, gently, return to now. Because processing is not the same as living there again. You can visit the memory with awareness, but you do not have to move back into it. You can learn from the pain, but you do not have to build your home around it. You can feel what was buried, but you do not have to let it rule the night. The present must remain the ground beneath your feet. The mind may return to old pain because it wants safety, not because it wants suffering. It wants a calmer ending inside you. It wants the wound to be witnessed by the wiser version of you. It wants to know that what happened will not remain a dark, nameless force controlling your rest. So as this night deepens, let the returning memory lose its mystery. It is not proof that you are broken. It is not proof that healing has failed. It is not proof that you are trapped in the past. It may simply be a part of you saying, I am ready to be held differently now. Hold it differently, not with fear, not with shame, not with another long argument. Hold it with breath. Hold it with reason. Hold it with the gentle authority of someone who knows the past is no longer happening. You could not process everything then because you were surviving. But tonight, you are not only surviving. You are witnessing. You are understanding. You are returning to yourself with steadier hands. And slowly, what once had no safety to be processed can begin to find safety in you. And after the mind begins to understand why it returns to what never had the safety to be processed, another heavy chain becomes ready to loosen. Because when pain has been carried for a long time, blame often grows around it. Blame toward others. Blame toward yourself. Blame toward life. Blame toward the version of you who did not know how to escape, speak, choose, or protect yourself sooner. But the Stoic path asks for something wiser than blame. It asks for truth without poison. There is a way to stop blaming without pretending nothing hurt. Many people think releasing blame means denying the wound. They think it means saying, "It was fine." They think it means excusing what harmed them, protecting the person who caused the pain, or forcing themselves to become peaceful before the heart is ready. But that is not release. That is suppression. That is only pain wearing a calm face. Real release does not begin by lying to yourself. It begins by telling the truth clearly. This hurt me. This affected me. This changed something in me. And still, I do not want to spend the rest of my life chained to blame. Blame often feels powerful at first. It gives the mind somewhere to place the pain. It says, "They did this. They should have known better. I should have left sooner. Life should not have happened this way." For a moment, blame can feel like order, because it gives the suffering a direction, but if blame stays too long, it becomes another wound. It keeps the person, the event, or the old version of yourself alive in your mind, as if the trial is still happening every night. The Stoics understood that the mind becomes disturbed when it keeps demanding that reality should have been different. Not because injustice does not exist, not because people do not make harmful choices, not because your pain was unreal, but because once something has happened, the question must change. It can no longer be only, who is to blame? At some point, the deeper question becomes, what is still mine to govern now? This is where freedom begins. You cannot change what they did. You cannot change what they failed to see. You cannot change the words that were spoken, the silence that was given, the care that was missing, or the moment that broke something open inside you. But you can choose not to let blame become your permanent home. You can choose not to let the wound keep deciding the tone of your inner life. You can choose to carry the lesson without carrying the poison. Releasing blame does not mean removing responsibility from the person who hurt you. If someone lied, they lied. If someone neglected you, they neglected you. If someone betrayed your trust, that betrayal belongs to them. Stoicism does not ask you to blur the truth. It asks you to see the truth without becoming consumed by it. You can name what happened without feeding hatred. You can admit the damage without turning your whole identity into a case against someone else. You can say, "That was wrong," and still refuse to let wrongness live inside your body forever. And sometimes, the hardest blame to release is not toward another person. It is toward yourself. You may blame yourself for not knowing sooner, for not speaking louder, for not leaving earlier, for trusting too much, for staying too long, for freezing, for hoping, for forgiving, for needing. But listen gently. Your past self was not living with your present wisdom. The version of you who was there had the knowledge, fear, strength, confusion, and emotional resources available at that time. You cannot judge that version as if they had already learned the lessons pain later taught you. There is cruelty in using today's wisdom to punish yesterday's innocence. The Stoic mind learns fairness, even toward the self. It asks, what did I truly control then? Maybe you controlled less than you now wish you had. Maybe fear narrowed your choices. Maybe love clouded your judgment. Maybe loneliness made you stay. Maybe hope made you wait. Maybe shock made your body freeze before your mind could plan. These things do not make you foolish. They make you human. You can learn from them without turning them into a sentence against your worth. Blame becomes dangerous when it repeats pain instead of teaching wisdom. Healthy responsibility says, I see what happened and I will learn from it. Blame says, I will keep hurting myself because it happened. Responsibility creates change. Blame creates punishment. Responsibility helps you build boundaries. Blame keeps you trapped in shame. Responsibility gives power back. Blame keeps power tied to the old wound. So tonight, the practice is not to erase what hurt. The practice is to separate truth from poison. The truth may be, I was hurt. The poison says, because of this, I must stay angry forever. The truth may be, they failed me. The poison says, their failure must keep defining my peace. The truth may be, I made choices I would not make now. The poison says, I should hate myself for not being wiser earlier. The truth gives clarity. The poison steals rest. And the body knows the difference. When blame is active, the body stays prepared for battle. The jaw tightens, the stomach holds, the shoulders brace. The breath becomes shallow. The mind keeps building arguments, gathering evidence, repeating speeches, proving the pain again and again. But the soul does not need another night of proof. The wound already knows it was real. What it needs now is release. Release begins with one honest sentence. I can admit this hurt without carrying blame as my identity. Let that sentence breathe. You are not denying the wound. You are removing the chain. You are not excusing the harm. You are refusing to keep drinking from it. You are not saying the past was acceptable. You are saying the present deserves protection. The Stoic way is to return to what is yours. Your response is yours. Your healing is yours. Your boundaries are yours. Your future choices are yours. Your inner language is yours. Your rest tonight is yours. Their actions belong to them. Their blindness belongs to them. Their immaturity belongs to them. Their cruelty, if there was cruelty, belongs to them. You do not need to keep carrying their moral failure inside your nervous system. This does not mean you must feel peaceful immediately. Release is not always a single grand moment. Sometimes it is one small refusal at a time, refusing to replay the argument, refusing to punish your past self again, refusing to imagine conversations that will never repair what happened. refusing to let your body relive the wound as if blame could rewrite it, refusing to make your peace depend on someone else, finally understanding the damage they caused. Maybe they will never understand, maybe they will never apologize, maybe they will always tell the story in a way that protects them, maybe they will keep seeing themselves as innocent. That may hurt, but it does not have to hold you hostage. Your freedom cannot depend on their honesty. Your rest cannot depend on their maturity. Your healing cannot wait forever at the door of someone who may never open it. Tonight, let blame become smaller than your breath. Let the old trial fade into the background. Let the mind stop calling witnesses from memory. Let the heart stop presenting evidence to people who are not here. Let the body understand that justice inside you does not require endless tension. You can choose wisdom. You can choose distance. You can choose boundaries. You can choose silence. You can choose release. And if the mind says, "But they hurt me," answer softly, "Yes, they did, and I will not keep hurting myself with the memory." If the mind says, "But it was unfair," answer, "Yes, and I will not give unfairness the rest of my life." If the mind says, "But I should have known," answer, "I know more now, and I will use that knowledge with mercy, not punishment." This is the rare strength of Stoic release. It does not deny pain. It does not worship pain. It places pain where it belongs. It lets the lesson remain, but lets the bitterness drain. It lets the truth stand, but lets the body rest. It lets memory exist, but does not let blame become the ruler of the night. So breathe slowly now. Let the inhale gather your scattered energy back from old accusations. Let the exhale return every burden to its proper owner. What they did is theirs. What you learned is yours. What hurt is real. What heals is possible. You do not have to carry blame to prove you were wounded. You do not have to hate yourself to prove you have grown. You do not have to keep the pain burning to honor what happened. Tonight, release does not mean forgetting. It means no longer letting blame sleep beside you like a second wound. Let the truth remain clear. Let the poison leave quietly. Let the body rest from the trial. And let the part of you that has been carrying blame for too long finally understand. You can remember what hurt, learn from what hurt, protect yourself from what hurt, and still be free. And after blame begins to loosen from the body, another quiet freedom becomes possible. Because sometimes the pain is not only in what happened during one season of your life. Sometimes the deeper pain is that your mind keeps using that season as the definition of your entire self. One chapter became the name you answered to. One storm became the weather you expected forever. One period of loss, confusion, rejection, shame, or survival became the mirror you kept looking into long after the season had passed. But one painful season is not the whole climate of your life. There are times when life becomes so heavy that you forget it is temporary. A difficult season can feel endless while you are inside it. The days feel slow, the nights feel long, your strength feels thin, your hope feels far away. You may wake up each morning with the same pressure in your chest, the same thoughts waiting for you, the same sadness sitting quietly beside your bed. And because the pain repeats itself for weeks, months, or even years, the mind begins to confuse repetition with identity. It says, "This is who I am now." It says, "I am the tired one. I am the rejected one. I am the person who lost too much. I am the person who failed. I am the person who was left behind. I am the person who cannot feel joy the way others do." And slowly, the season stops feeling like something you went through and starts feeling like something you are. This is how a temporary wound becomes a permanent name. The Stoic way asks you to step back and look at the whole of your life, not only the part that hurt the loudest. Pain has a way of making itself look like the entire story. It stands close to the eyes, so everything else becomes blurred. You forget the parts of you that existed before the season. You forget the courage that carried you through it. You forget the small moments of goodness that still appeared, even when life was hard. You forget that you are not only the person who suffered, you are also the person who endured, learned, adjusted, survived, and continued breathing when it would have been easier to collapse. A season can shape you, but it should not swallow you. Maybe there was a season when you were not your best. You were tired. You were reactive. You were confused. You made choices from fear. You stayed too long. You left too late. You trusted wrongly. You closed your heart. You became quiet. You became guarded. You became someone even you did not fully recognize. But that season was not the full truth of your character. It was a picture of you under pressure, and a person under pressure is not always a complete picture of who they are. A tree in winter is not dead because it has no leaves. It is in a season. It looks bare, but life still moves beneath the surface. The roots still hold. The trunk still stands. The branches still wait. If you judged the tree only in winter, you would misunderstand it. And many people do this to themselves. They look at themselves during their hardest season and decide, this is all I am. But winter is not the whole tree. Pain is not the whole person. The Stoics understood that life moves in change. Nothing stays in one form forever. Joy changes. Pain changes. People change. Circumstances change. The mind changes when it is trained. The heart changes when it is held with patience. The body changes when it receives safety. So when you say, I will always be this way, you are speaking from the illusion of the moment. You are allowing one season to pretend it has the authority of destiny, but it does not. One painful season may have taught you lessons, but it cannot decide your entire identity unless you keep agreeing with it. It may have taught you caution, but you do not have to become permanently closed. It may have taught you grief, but you do not have to become grief itself. It may have taught you humility, but you do not have to become shame. It may have taught you discernment, but you do not have to become suspicious of every good thing. The lesson can remain without the wound becoming your name. This is where the mind needs gentle correction. When it says, I am broken, you answer, I passed through a breaking season. When it says, I am alone, you answer, I have experienced loneliness. But loneliness is not my entire life. When it says, I failed, you answer, I lived through a failing moment, and I can still grow. When it says, I lost myself, you answer, I became distant from myself for a time, and now I am returning. The words you use matter because identity listens. If you keep calling yourself by the name of the season, the body begins to live as if that name is law. If you keep saying, I am damaged, your nervous system prepares to live like someone with no future. If you keep saying, I am unlucky, your mind begins to search for disappointment before life even speaks. If you keep saying, I am not the same, without also saying, I can still become, then pain becomes a closed door. But tonight, a new door opens. You can admit that a season changed you without letting it finish you. You can say, that time was hard, without saying, I am only hardship. You can say, I was not okay then, without saying, I will never be okay again. You can say, I survived something that altered me, without saying, nothing beautiful can grow in me anymore. The Stoic practice is to return to what is still within your power. You cannot erase the season. You cannot make every memory disappear. You cannot become untouched by what deeply affected you. But you can decide how you speak to yourself now. You can decide what meaning you give the season. You can decide whether it becomes a prison or a teacher. You can decide whether it becomes the end of your story or the place where wisdom began to take root. This does not mean you rush yourself into a new identity. Healing is not pretending to be reborn overnight. Sometimes you must grieve the version of yourself that existed before the season. Sometimes you must admit that certain innocence did not return. Sometimes you must accept that you now see life differently. But different does not mean destroyed. Different can also mean deeper, wiser, more discerning, more honest, more compassionate toward people who suffer quietly, more careful with your peace, more awake to what truly matters. A painful season can make you smaller if you build your identity around the wound, but it can make you deeper if you build wisdom from it. The choice is not always instant, and it is not always easy, but it is possible. Slowly you begin to stop saying, "This ruined me," and begin saying, "This revealed what needed healing." You stop saying, "I lost everything," and begin saying, "I lost much, but not the power to become." You stop saying, "I am stuck there," and begin saying, "A part of me was left there, and now I am calling it home." At night, this matters because old seasons often return as moods. You may not remember every detail, but you feel the atmosphere, the heaviness of that time, the fear, the loneliness, the disappointment, the shame, the exhaustion. And because the feeling returns, the mind says, "Nothing has changed." But a feeling returning is not proof that you are back there. It is only a wave from a season that once touched you deeply. Do not let an old emotional weather report define the whole sky. Tonight, when the season rises in memory, see it as a chapter, see its beginning, see its middle, see its ending. Notice that you are no longer standing at the same point. You are here, looking back. That alone means something has changed. The past may still echo, but you are not inside it in the same way. You have more awareness now, more language, more distance, more ability to choose your response, more permission to rest. Let the body understand this. Let your breath tell the nervous system, that season passed. Let your shoulders tell the mind, we do not have to carry the whole chapter tonight. Let your chest tell the heart, we are allowed to be more than what happened then. Let the silence tell your soul, you are not trapped in that version of yourself anymore. You may have been wounded, but you are not only wounded. You may have been rejected, but you are not only rejected. You may have been lost, but you are not only lost. You may have been tired, but you are not only tired. You may have suffered, but you are not only suffering. There is more evidence of you than pain remembers. There were moments you kept going when no one clapped. There were moments you chose kindness when bitterness would have been easier. There were moments you held yourself together with nothing but breath. There were moments you wanted to disappear from the weight of it all, yet something in you stayed. That matters. That is part of your identity too. Do not let pain edit out your courage. Do not let one dark chapter erase the quiet heroism of surviving it. Do not let a season of being broken make you forget the strength it took not to become cruel. The Stoic soul does not deny the winter. It simply refuses to believe winter is the only season that exists. It knows that life is movement. It knows that identity can be renewed through choice. It knows that what happened before can instruct you without owning you. It knows that the self is not frozen forever in the worst moment it endured. So tonight, let the old label fall away. Let the painful season return to its proper place. Not erased, not glorified, not treated as nothing, just placed where it belongs, behind you, within your story, but not above your becoming. You are allowed to outgrow the version of yourself that pain introduced to the world. You are allowed to become unfamiliar to the wound. You are allowed to stop answering to the name that season gave you. And as sleep comes closer, let this truth settle deeply. One painful season may have marked you, but it did not name you forever. It may have changed the road, but it did not cancel the journey. It may have taken pieces of you, but it did not take the part that can still rise, still soften, still learn, still rest, still become. Tonight, you are not the season. You are the life that continued after it. And after you begin to understand that one painful season does not have the right to name your entire life, another quiet heaviness begins to make sense. Because sometimes the pillow is not heavy because the body is tired. It is heavy because grief has been wandering inside you all day with nowhere safe to land. You carried it through conversations. You carried it through work. You carried it behind your smile. And when night finally comes, the grief you had no place for lays its full weight beside you. There is a kind of sadness that becomes heavier when it has nowhere to go. Your pillow becomes heavy when your soul has nowhere to put grief, because grief is not meant to stay locked inside the mind forever. It needs space. It needs breath. It needs witness. It needs permission. But many people move through life without any safe place to place what hurts. They cannot speak it fully because people may not understand. They cannot cry openly because they are expected to be strong. They cannot explain it because the pain is too deep for simple words. So they keep carrying it quietly, hoping the day will distract them long enough to survive. But grief does not disappear because the day was busy. It waits. It waits beneath your duties. It waits under your calm replies. It waits behind your tired eyes. It waits inside the pause after everyone has gone quiet. And when you finally lie down, when there is no one to answer, no task to finish, no face to hold together, grief rises, not always as tears, sometimes as pressure in the chest, sometimes as a strange ache in the throat, sometimes as restlessness, sometimes as a deep tiredness that sleep does not immediately reach. This is why the pillow can feel like it holds more than your head. It becomes the place where all the unspoken things gather, the words you never said, the love you still carry, the goodbye that never felt complete, the disappointment no one saw, the loneliness you did not want to admit, the memory that still touches something tender, the part of you that had to continue before it had time to mourn. The Stoics understood grief, but they did not worship it. They knew loss was part of life, but they also knew the mind suffers more when it tries to carry loss without order. Grief needs to be honored, but it must not become the ruler of the soul. This is not coldness. This is wisdom. To deny grief is to bury a living thing inside you, but to obey grief completely is to let one sorrow become the whole sky. The Stoic path stands between these two extremes. It allows grief to speak, but does not let grief own the night. Many people fear grief because they think if they let it in, it will never leave. So they keep pushing it away. They stay busy. They make jokes. They comfort others. They distract themselves with noise. They tell themselves, "I am fine." But grief that is not allowed a place does not vanish. It changes form. It becomes irritability. It becomes numbness. It becomes overthinking. It becomes sudden sadness. It becomes heaviness in quiet moments. It becomes the feeling that something inside you is still waiting to be held. And sometimes the grief is not only for someone you lost. Sometimes it is grief for who you had to become. Grief for the innocence that left too early. Grief for the childhood that did not feel safe. Grief for the version of you who believed people would stay. Grief for the years spent trying to be understood by those who could not meet you. Grief for chances missed, words swallowed, dreams delayed, trust broken, and softness buried under survival. This kind of grief is hard to explain because nothing may look wrong from the outside. People may see you functioning and assume you are healed. They may see you smiling and assume your heart is light. They may see you working, caring, helping, moving, and think the pain must be gone. But the soul knows what it has not yet mourned. The body knows what it still carries. And at night, the truth becomes harder to avoid. The Stoic way is not to shame yourself for grieving. It is to give grief a proper place. Not the whole house, not the throne, but a room. A place where it can be seen without being allowed to destroy everything. You can say, "This sadness is here." You can say, "Something in me still misses what was lost." You can say, "I am grieving something I never fully named." That honesty alone creates space. It tells the soul, "You do not have to wander tonight. I see you." Grief becomes heavier when you keep demanding that it justify itself. You may ask, "Why am I still sad? Why does this still matter? Why can't I just move on?" But grief does not obey the timeline of the mind. It moves according to love, attachment, memory, and meaning. You do not grieve because you are weak. You grieve because something mattered. You grieve because something touched you deeply. You grieve because a part of your heart had to release something it wanted to keep. Reason does not erase grief. Reason helps grief find shape. Reason says, "This is loss." Reason says, "This is longing." Reason says, "This is love with nowhere to land." Reason says, "This is not proof that I am broken. This is proof that my heart is alive." And when grief is met with reason, it stops being a dark fog and becomes something you can hold with gentleness. Tonight, let your pillow stop being a hidden grave for everything you never said. Let it become a resting place, not a storage place. You do not have to solve all the grief tonight. You do not have to understand every ache. You do not have to cry if tears do not come. You do not have to force release. You only need to stop fighting the truth that something in you has been heavy. Breathe into that heaviness without fear. Let the inhale say, "I make room for what I feel." Let the exhale say, "I do not have to carry it all at once." Let your body soften under the weight of being honest. There is no need to perform strength here. There is no need to explain your sadness to anyone. There is no need to make grief sound reasonable before it is allowed to exist. The night can become a quiet container, a place where your grief does not have to roam through your body without a name, a place where the soul can finally put down what the day gave no space to hold, a place where the heart can whisper, "This hurt," and not be rushed away from itself. And maybe grief will still be there tomorrow. That is okay. The goal is not to throw it out of your life by force. The goal is to stop carrying it as a secret weight. The goal is to let it breathe, so it does not have to press so hard against your chest. The goal is to let it become part of your story without becoming the whole story. The Stoic heart does not say, "I will never feel sorrow." It says, "Sorrow may visit, but I will remain steady." It says, "Loss may touch me, but I will not lose my entire self inside it." It says, "I can honor what is gone without abandoning what is still here." This is the balance. Grief is allowed to be real, but life is still allowed to continue. So tonight, if your pillow feels heavy, do not hate yourself for it. Do not call yourself weak. Do not turn sadness into another reason to judge your soul. Simply understand, grief has been looking for somewhere safe to rest. And perhaps, for this moment, your breath can be that place. Your awareness can be that place. Your kindness toward yourself can be that place. Let the grief lay down without taking you with it. Let the sadness be held without becoming your name. Let the heaviness soften because it no longer has to hide. You have carried so much without a place to put it, but tonight you can place it here. Not forever, not completely, just enough for the body to rest, just enough for the heart to feel less alone, just enough for the soul to know it has finally been heard. Your pillow became heavy because grief had nowhere to go. Tonight, gently, you give it a place. And in giving it a place, you begin to give yourself peace. And now, as this meditation comes to its final quiet breath, remember what tonight has been teaching you. The weight inside your mind was never proof that you were weak. It was proof that you carried too much without a safe place to lay it down. The explanations you kept giving in your head, the neglect you never named, the past you treated like a sentence, the memories that replayed when you felt powerless, the shame that survived in silence, the grief that made your pillow heavy, all of it was asking for one thing: release. The Stoic path does not ask you to erase your story. It asks you to stop being ruled by it, to see what happened clearly without letting it become your identity, to let painful memories exist without obeying them, to forgive without abandoning yourself, to stop calling numbness peace, to stop carrying other people's emotional storms inside your own body, to stop begging yesterday for an ending it can no longer give. Tonight, you practiced a different kind of strength. Not the strength that keeps pretending, not the strength that carries everything alone, but the strength that says, "This hurt me, but it will not own me. This shaped me, but it will not name me. This memory may visit, but it does not lead." So as sleep takes you deeper, let the old damage lose its grip. Let the body stop defending itself from battles that are gone. Let the mind stop reopening wounds just to prove they were real. Let the heart rest from explaining, forgiving too quickly, hiding too much, and surviving in silence. And before you go, leave one honest word in the comments: released. Not because everything vanished in one night, but because something in you is ready to stop carrying pain like a home. If this meditation gave your mind even a little peace, subscribe to the channel and return whenever your soul needs quiet, wisdom, and rest.